that this meeting is being webcast and members of the gallery may have their voice and image captured. By attending, you consent to being captured, recorded and webcast. Any statements made by individual persons during the course of this meeting are the statements of those individuals and not of council. You should refrain from making any defamatory remarks or making comments about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any statements made by individuals during the course of the meeting. In the event of an emergency or the fire alarm sounding, please remain calm and wait for instructions from the General Manager and Council officers. If we need to evacuate the building, Council's emergency muster point during Council meetings is the lower Council car park. In the event of a medical emergency, please alert Council staff for assistance. Council acknowledges the Wanneroo people as the traditional custodians. You're more than welcome to leave. Council acknowledges the Wanneroo people as the traditional custodians of this land we are meeting on today and pay our respects to elders past, present and future. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. We also acknowledge the Awabakal people to the east and the Darkinjung people to the south and other Aboriginal peoples who now live within the Cessnock local government area. Do we have Pastor Enway with us today? The council doesn't appear to be here. No. So councillors, please stand for the council prayer. I may call Councillor Watton to lead.
Most gracious God, we pray for the Council of the City of Cessnock, its members and officers. Direct their work and influence their decisions to the advancement of your glory and the safety and welfare of this city, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice, and sound development may be established among us through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
So moving on to receipt of apologies and applications for leave of absence. There have been apologies tendered on behalf of Councillors Olsen and Dunn for unavoidable absence, and there's a request for leave of absence being submitted for Councillor Dunn from the 3rd of April to the 21st of April. That's correct. So if you have someone moving that way and accepting leave of absence, move Councillor Sanders, seconded Councillor Hill. No, Councillor Watton, you. Yep. Oh, sorry, I still had you on. Councillor Moores, did you need to speak on that one?
Yeah, you'd already said the dates for Paul Dunn, Monday the 3rd of April to the Friday the 21st of April. And he will be available for any Anzac duties we have to do. Thank you.
Councillor Painter.
Yes, I'd like to apply for leave as well from May 24th to June 22nd.
To 22nd.
22nd June, yep.
And the mover and seconder are comfortable with those? Yep. So no further debate. We'll put that item. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Confirmation of previous minutes. Moving that way, Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Sander. No debate. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to disclosures of interest. Do we have any disclosures of interest? Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a disclosure and report PE 10 2023, the Hunter Valley Destination Management Plan. I have a non-pecuniary interest less than significant in that the Cessnock Business Chamber put in or was part of the consultation, and I choose to remain in the chamber as I did not have any influence on that consultation.
Thank you. No petitions that I'm aware of. We'll move on to public address. Our first speaker tonight is in relation to report PE 6 2023, and I'll call Craig Sheridan to come forward to the lectern at the front here. So thank you, Craig. You'll have 3 minutes to address council.
Okay, thank you. I'm just here to speak in opposition to the development application, 22 6th Street, South Cessnock. I live at the adjoining property, number 20. I have there for nearly 20 years. I always expected there'd be subdevelopment on that block of land, and because there are a number on that street of Evans Street there, and they're usually just a single-storey duplex, 3-bedroom, that sort of standard subdivisions that we see in Cessnock now. However, this development is shocking, to say the least. I've never seen a duplex subdevelopment of this size. They're 2-storey, looking straight into my property. They are 4 bedrooms, each with their own designated bathroom. Now, I don't consider that a acceptable development next door, and I really don't understand how it's being put up for development and why it's being considered. However, so I'll just run through the things that I don't see as complying, and mostly from the statement of environmental effects that was prepared by ACN Landmark, the consultant that they used. Basically, it seeks an exemption from the distance that is from the front boundary from 4 metres to 2 metres, and cites the other developments up the road as being already got away with that, so it's okay for us to do that now, even though this is 2-storey. It does not, by its own admission, meet the requirement for the minimum outdoor space. It's well short of that, and as it is in the report. It also does not define what the purpose of this house is, this duplex is. This is not normal suburban families that are living in here. 4 bedrooms with 4 bathrooms. Is that only a minute left? Okay. Basically, under this zoning, I don't know if it's a boarding house, an Airbnb, NDIS share house, a drug rehab house, a brothel. I don't know what it is. But it's not a suburban house that belongs in our district, and I certainly don't want it overlooking my yard, an invasion of my privacy, a loss of my lifestyle. It is an inappropriate and overdevelopment of a block, and I see this as only a stage 1. I see the existing house will later be demolished, and this development will be doubled, and we'll have 16 bedrooms, 16 bathrooms on a suburban backyard block in Cessnock that would house the whole existing street that I currently live in. Looks like I'm out of time, so that's me.
Do we need extension of time, or have you finished?
No, I'll get extension. Okay.
Extension of time. Move Councillor Moore.
Thank you.
second Councillor
I guess the
Hawkins.
things
Hang on.
that...
Just hold for a second. So it's moved Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Hawkins. No debate. All those in favour? It's unanimous. You have 1 further minute.
Okay, not a problem. The other thing is it doesn't meet the level of parking. It's by its own admission. It's only got 1 pretty much designated parking space per unit, so 2 designated parking spaces. There is access to this property. There is no pedestrian access there. There is no formed pathways. If you want to access via 6th Street, there's not even a pedestrian bridge across the creek. You have to walk on the roadway. They say they're going to make them develop the end of Evans Street and put in the on-street parking there. That floods all the time. So I don't know if the developer's Moses, where he can get the water to go away, but I don't know how he's going to do that. I just see this as an overdevelopment, and I cannot believe this is being considered. And I think the council is more fearful of repercussions, legal repercussions from the developer than looking after the citizens of this community.
The gallery will please come to order. By this kind of outburst, you're delaying the proceedings of council, and it's not something I expect to see. And if the gallery doesn't come to order, I will be asked that they will be removed from the chambers. So, councillors, do you have any questions for Mr. Sheridan? Councillor Moores.
Yeah, Mr. Sheridan, thank you very much for your speech. What's this going to affect in your lifestyle?
Well, it's a two-story development that will look directly into my backyard. So I don't know about you, but I don't know how comfortable I would be with my kids or my grandkids being overlooked by a development that I don't even know what the intent of it is. I'm not talking about a suburban family that's going to be living next door to me that I know, Barry and Judy or whatever. This is, I don't know what it is. It's a halfway house. Is it a drug rehab house? I don't know. I'm not comfortable being using my backyard. If this development proceeds, I can't live there. I've got to sell up and I've got to go.
Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
Sorry. Thank you very much for the presentation. I believe we had to leave the inspection this afternoon before you arrived, so I didn't get a chance to catch you and have a chat myself. What if any other properties like something like this, or maybe to a lesser extent, exist in that area? Because I'm myself not very familiar with the area of South Cessnock there. Are you able to give me some information about? Are there like a lot of duplexes, a lot of subdivided blocks in the area? Is that sort of the standard that you see appearing in that space?
In South Cessnock, there is no two-storey duplex.
Yep.
There are only two-storey houses, and they're orientated to face into their own backyard.
Mm-hmm.
What we're seeing in 6th Street, I think there's 4 different subdivisions, duplexes, blocks that are being divided, 2 lots of social public housing. So there's a lot of development that is already in that street.
Because my understanding is that the zoning in that area is for a higher density, and I understand we are looking to review the LEP which reviews the zoning for the areas.
Absolutely.
And so from sort of your comments and perhaps the sentiment of the community, your belief would be that perhaps is a little bit too dense of a zoning for that area, and the preference would be for a less dense residential zoning in future.
Totally. When I seen the development come through, I nearly didn't even open it up. I thought, okay, it's going to be the same as the other ones on Evans Street. There's 3 lots of those.
Yep.
Single story, duplexes, 3-bedroom, the standard kit that's everywhere in Cessnock.
Yep.
I did not expect 2 4-bedroom units with their own designated bathroom that looks into my property.
And just finally, for my last question for you as well, with the issue of the high 2-storey house with the windows looking into your property, would you think that you would be comfortable if there were conditions on that window issue, that if the windows were made to be frosted or glazed so that there was no view out of them in terms of more than just light?
No, because you don't require a development application to change that at any time. As soon as that's built, that can be changed at any time.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a good point. Thank you.
So my understanding is that there are conditions in relation to that the windows are not, because of speaking to you, I went and followed up after the site inspection, and I know privacy was a significant concern, that the windows are not big open windows overlooking into your yard. They're actually quite high up, sort of small windows that will actually be required to be frosted glass, so there will be actually no one viewing from that northerly access into your property.
Well, I've seen that the frosted glass is a condition, but anyone can look out a window. Tell you what, when it's built, how about you bring your kids over and swim in the pool? See if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions? No further questions. Please thank Mr. Sheridan for his presentation. Do we have, now we'll move on to report PE6 2023. Do we have someone moving the recommendation? Is anyone moving the recommendation from the floor? Was Councillor Burke was moving the recommendation, seconded as it is? Anyone seconding the recommendation from the floor? Councillor Moores, speaking on it. Do you want to speak, Councillor Burke?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question to the Director of Planning and Environment. Does the application propose to have an Airbnb, as Mr. Sheridan has pointed out some of his concerns? Does the application support having that shared accommodation type thing on the site?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Burke, the application is for residential dwellings. Any residential property in Cessnock can be used for short-term residential accommodation, commonly known as Airbnb.
Thank you.
Councillor Judd.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I would be a little bit further down on the list to speak. I've asked a few questions about this DA and I went to the site inspection today. One of the questions I asked council is why is this 2 units of 4 bedrooms, 4 ensuite, plus an extra powder room, which I think we failed to mention when Craig got up to speak, and I got your name right now, Craig. Is this going to be like the development in Cumberland Street, where the renter has a private bedroom and bathroom, and then the lounge, kitchen, etc. is communal use? The council's response was the DA is not similar to the development in Cumberland Street, that the Cumberland development was approved as a boarding house under the provisions of the Housing State Environmental Planning Policy. This is approved for multi-dwelling housing. My question is tonight, could that change if this gets approved? Could they turn this into a boarding house? What's stopping them from doing so after this is built?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is you need the correct zoning to have a boarding house, and this is zoned R3 medium density, whereas the boarding house that's behind this building here, I think, is business 4. Yep. So it couldn't be turned into that without the zoning changing.
Okay. So what's the difference between Airbnb and then boarding houses?
Director. And Airbnb, I can answer that. Is an Airbnb is around short-term, generally holiday letting. Boarding houses are a specific type of development that are used for mostly transition style accommodation for people that may need housing, short-term housing, whether they're transitioning potentially from places like prison or those type of things.
Of what, sorry?
From prison to a boarding home to then transfer into normal residential accommodation. So as the director said, the boarding house would not be permissible in the current zoning of that site.
Mm-hmm.
And Airbnb is completely different
Okay.
to
No
a boarding house development.
Alrighty. So then my next question I wrote in was why does the report support the bending of council rules for the provision of private open space when requirement is to be 70 metres square? The response was, as detailed in the report, a variation is proposed to the minimum area required under council's DCP for private open space. The variation is considered minor, ranging from 5.8% to 14.3%, and it is considered that the open space proposed is well shaped, ideally orientated to take advantage of a northerly aspect, and goes on about the use of Bradley Park instead of having enough private land use. I then asked about the zoning. So the SP2 infrastructure zoning of the land does not permit multi-dwellings. Is council not trying to get public transport happening here with the railway line being behind? Their response was that the SP2 zone is reflective of the disused rail corridor at the rear of the site, and there is a mapping anomaly where a small slither of this zone encroaches on the subject land. My question is, what if the mapping anomaly, is wrong, and it isn't just a small area of land like they are saying? What if the majority of the DA land is zoned SP2? They also said that the SP2 zone with provisions of the CLEP permits development that would otherwise be permitted in the zone if it is within 20 metres of an adjoining zone within which this development is permitted. In this case, the proposal complied with the provision. Can you tell me how?
Question for the director. Do you want to re-clarify that question?
So, just to get clarification on how the SP2 zone with provisions of the CELP permits development. So this is one of the questions I forgot to send in because I don't know. How does the CLEP permit development that would otherwise be prohibited in the zone if it is within 20 metres of an adjoining zone?
Through Mr. Mayor, I think I understand the gist of that. It comes back to the mapping anomaly. There is part of the SP2 zone covers this property plus the neighbouring property and the next one, approximately a couple of metres. It just doesn't, the mapping doesn't line up with the cadastral boundaries. That is going to be remedied project this year to digitise all the maps, and that will then line up all the zoning with the appropriate cadastral boundaries. And that will then ensure that all of this lot, plus the neighbouring lot, plus the lot next to that, has got the R3 zone map colour over the entire lot.
Okay, thank you very much. The report says that even Evans Street will be addressed for the council garbage truck, but after going to the site today, I honestly cannot see how they will turn around with the extra cars parking on the street. My opinion, they'll be driving up and then reversing out of the street. This development, like they say, ticks all the boxes. It even ticks the Hunter Regional Planning boxes. It won't be long till we have what Newcastle has just announced in the Newcastle Herald, that they are going to do a high-rise version of Cumberland Street, all under the guise of affordable housing that is supposedly green. As I sit here tonight, I cannot put on my planner's hat as it doesn't exist. I sit here as a councillor doing my role as a councillor to make considered and well-informed decisions to represent the collective interests of residents, ratepayers and the local community. And with that in mind, I cannot support this DA. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for the Director of Planning. The resident next adjacent to this property raised a concern, or a number of concerns in regards to insufficient provision of parking and the exception that has been listed to be made in regards to the setback. If council has held a position of wishing to reject this application, would the fact that the setback has been given an exception in this case, would the actual standard 4 metre setback ruling be enough to, or not as an excuse, but enough of a reasoning to reject the application on those grounds, in addition perhaps to the provision of parking?
Director.
You, Mr. Mayor, I think I just need to make preface my response with, when you apply for a DA, everybody is entitled to seek variations to the planning standards. That's the reason for doing a DA. If you complied exactly with everything, you'd be complying development, you wouldn't need a DA. So the very fact that someone has applied for a DA anticipates that people will be seeking variations from the planning standards. That's where the planners who assess it apply their professional judgment to it and look at it overall, the overall development, particularly in the context of the Cessnock Local Environmental Plan, which in 2011 said this zoning of land in this area is going to be medium density, and we expect to see medium density development. So that's been the community and council statement since 2011. It's been very slow in the uptake, and there's only been a few done, but that is the current stated position. It is the right of every landowner and ratepayer to apply for a development that complies with the rules or is capable of being approved in terms of what that local environment plan allows. So anyone in the R3 zone is entitled to expect they can build medium density dwellings in that zone. Whether they choose to or not is their decision. So coming back to whether something like the setback variation or the parking variation would be sufficient to reject this application, The professional advice is no, it would not be. It would be considered minor and is perfectly capable of being approved.
Thank you. Additional question, if I may, as well to you. The LEP review, as I understand, is underway. Do you have a time frame on when you suspect if there were to be changes to residential zoning, when they would be come into effect?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, my team has just commenced work on the residential theme within the local environment plan, so that's happening at the moment. I'm just looking to Martin. I think we've got a target of the end of the year to have that draft done. It will then come to council for public exhibition. That's when all of the public can have a comment on it, and they might say things like, we don't think R3 zone is appropriate in this location, or they might say it should be denser. We don't know. So that work will happen this calendar year, go out for public exhibition towards the end of this year, early next year. Then council will, debate all the submissions that come in and then determine whether there needs to be any changes to the residential density zonings for the LGA.
Is it possible for council to defer a decision on an application such as this for that sort of period of time until after the review is done? Or would the more appropriate provision be to perhaps reject with a note that the applicant, that it's council's position that the applicant should reapply after rezoning is completed?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, my advice is that the assessment has been completed on this application. You need to make a decision, either approve or refuse. And if it is refused, then the applicant has the option of going to appeal, or they may wish to wait until something changes.
So, thank you.
And can I just clarify on that with the director that assessments need to be considered based on the current time. We can't review this even if we did change the LEP in the future, this DA is lodged under the current LEP and needs to be determined based on the current LEP. Yes, that's correct. Yep. Councillor Painter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the Director of Planning as well. It says here, a total of 7 car parking spaces is required, including a visitor car space. So where does the 7 car parks sit? Because we know that if they park on the street or on the major street, they get fined by the rangers. And secondly, is if it is further developed into another 2-storey duplex building, it could be 14 car spaces to be allocated. Where are they going to have 14 cars?
The Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The current variation is for the visitor car parking space, so it currently complies with the requirements for parking apart from one visitor space. Those councillors who did a site visit this afternoon can form their own opinions about whether visitor parking could be accommodated in that location. If the existing house was removed and it was further developed into 2 more duplexes, the applicant would have to demonstrate they can meet the car parking requirements or apply for a variation, and that would be considered on its merits at the time.
Councillor Moores.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pointed straight at the Director of Planning. So I've never seen you so busy. But anyway, we're saying about the open space. We're looking at 16 rooms here, the bathroom and toilet. That's 2 people to a room. 32 people in that small space. So if all them people decide to come outside in the garden, there's 32 people there. That's one. Then you say car parking, and it meets the criteria. Okay, if there's 16 rooms, 2 adults to each room, that's 32 cars. So you're saying things like 2011 this was passed and this is the rule. That was 12 years ago. We're growing this town so fast, and we've got to stop and smell the roses. Because this, to me, is all wrong. It just stinks everything about it. I wasn't there today. I didn't have to. I've been out there 6 times. And I've looked at this 6 times. You tell me where you're going to put 32 cars there. Tell me a man that's gone to work every day and he's got a family, and then all of a sudden someone comes next door and builds a 16-room, halfway house, brothel, whatever. You haven't even got a thing to say, what is this going to be? Is it an Indian couple that's got plenty of kids? You don't know. There's no answer. You know, you might have a small little place, but this to me is not South Cessnock. It floods like holy hell down there. So we're not doing things right here. This should be refused until more grounds has been looked at it. Because you've had more bullets fired at you tonight, you're shell-shocked.
Was there a question of the director, or?
That's straight to the director. Thank you. I
No,
just think
happy-
it should be refused, and let's have a really good look at this, because I've never seen anything like this go through.
Happy for the director to comment.
Just in response to a couple of your comments, I would challenge your assumption of 32 people living in the property. That's my view. In terms of the council getting on with reviewing LEP, yes, it has been 2011. That is in the hands of council. They can allocate funds to review these documents at any time. They have done that. It is under review at the moment. However, 10 years between reviews is probably about right. I wouldn't want to see us doing knee-jerk reviews to every application that comes along. That gives no certainty to anyone.
Councillor Grine.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. If we do go ahead with this particular development based on the rules and the advice that council has given, are we in the position where we can then police it to make sure that it isn't being used for what it's approved of? So, for example, a brothel.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Grine, if this application is approved tonight, it will be subject to a number of conditions. Those are enforceable conditions. We don't have the resources to go around checking every DA in the LGA, but we do respond to complaints. So if we got a complaint in relation to a potential breach of a consent, we would investigate that and take whatever action was necessary. In terms of use of the site, anybody is able to use their residential property for any legal purpose, be that as of right or through permissions. So it can be used for what anyone else can use their home for.
Thank you, Director. If we were to follow the advice of council and approve it, and then there were many, many complaints, where do we go? Where do the public or the neighbours go from there?
Director. Sorry, I think you still had it on.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, the first stop is with the council to seek rectification of those issues if they're proven to be correct. Ultimately, the council can take enforcement action, go to the courts as a last resort. So there's infringement fines that can be levied, and ultimately further sanctions by the court if necessary.
Thank you, Director. I just have one more question. This particular developer, do they currently have any other developments in our LGA, and have they been known to use those developments for other things, i.e. brothels?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I have no knowledge of that, and it's not relevant to the decision before you. You're only required to assess the application in front of you with the information in front of you.
Thank you, Director. So if we were to refuse this development, as a councillor, if we were to refuse this particular development tonight, what is the likelihood that it would be taken to appeals court?
I don't know the circumstances of the developer. That would be their decision. They could appeal it, or they may just let it go. My personal view is they would have very strong grounds for appeal. Just as an indication, minimum cost to council will be $100,000 for an appeal, possibly up to $200,000, and I think I think we'd have very poor chances of being successful.
And if they were to win that appeal, we as council would have to pay that money, am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you, Director.
Councillor Moores, you've already spoken. Well, you can't speak again, Councillor Moores. You can, yeah. In closing debate, the last speaker,
Happy to
Councillor.
close debate, Mr Mayor, though it is just a question, and for the life of me, I'm sorry, Director, I cannot find it in the report. How many people submitted submissions that objected to this development application? Where is it?
Through you, Mr Mayor, my understanding is there were 3 objections from 2 households.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with no further debate, we now put the item. All those in favour? Councillors Burke, Grind, Sander, Hawkins and Saval. Those against? Councillors Jackson, Moores, Hill, Painter, Watton and Jerd. 6, I'll declare the item lost. No, nothing done. Yeah, okay. We'll now move on to the next speaker for tonight in relation to so, yes, Councillor Hawkins.
Do we now have to have a motion to refuse and reasons for refusal?
That was part of the discussion around how we go about that because there was no alternate motion put forward about how to
was
refuse.
defeated, but no resolution was made.
Yeah. Councillor Hawkins, I think if you could move to recommit the vote on that to allow us to reopen debate and an alternate.
Mr Mayor, I believe that the motion was lost and it's still on the table. So an alternate resolution should be put by the people that defeated it.
No, we
For that
need to. The director of.
Thank you, Ms. Saval. There was no alternate motion under discussion, so essentially that item is now finished. From a legal perspective, we should have a determination of it. If council wants to reconsider the matter, you would need to recommit the motion, the item, and then if that is successful, you could then move and make a decision.
So that's one of you guys that voted against it. You need to move a recommittal and then we vote on that.
So what's the word?
Then you put up your motion to refuse the application.
So we have Councillor
Recommit first.
Painter moving to recommit the item, seconded by Councillor Hill. All those in favour is unanimous. We'll now go back to report PE 6 2023, and I'll request that the minutes officer may bring forward a potential considered alternate recommendation that could be put forward. We just need the words on the screen. Well, they probably don't want to move it until they see the words on the screen. So if I can get the words on the screen.
So you can't get the words on the screen until someone's moved the motion.
So we got a councillor prepared to move that it be refused for those conditions. To move. Yeah. So Councillor Jerd's happy to move that way. Councillor Hill, you're happy to second? Okay. Um, we'll now put the, is there any debate on this item? Councillor Hill?
Perhaps as I was the councillor to raise specific points to the Director of Planning in regards to this, unless Councillor Jerd, who I know is very passionate about it, would like to put into words herself a reason. Am I correct in that we would need to provide some reasoning as to why the refusal is being done against the recommendation of staff?
Yeah, and that is what's in front of you.
Oh, it is. Sorry. 2 seconds. Yeah, I'm happy that I think these dot points as spoken, as written on the screen there, reflect the concerns raised by the community. I am of the mind that whilst it is in line with the current LEP, the community sentiment and perhaps my own shared sentiment is that it is not in line with it, in line with what is needed in that space, and hence why I asked the question about the possibility of deferring until the LEP is reviewed. I understand that we can't keep it open the entire time, and so my hope for the applicant would be that, taking on board the concerns raised by the community, I do not wish that they abandon it completely, but if they would like to look at resubmitting the application once the review of the LEP is completed, I believe that there would be more support from the community if a new complying development were to match perhaps future guidelines in the LEP. I do understand that there's the possibility that it will be rejected and appealed, sorry, I should say, by the applicant. And while I have in the past approved applications on those grounds, that I do not wish to follow on through that appeals process if an applicant wishes to repeal it. And yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm just going to end my comments there.
Okay. With no further debate, we'll now put the motion as in front of us. All those in favour of that motion? Councillors Jackson, Moores, Hill, Painter, Watton and Jerd. Those against, Councillors Burke, Grine, Sander, Hawkins and Saval. I'll declare the motion carried. Councillors, I will make the comment that this is an extremely unprofessional way to conduct our business in meetings, having motions on the fly like this that should be prepared and moved in the debate for discussion. And I would hope that in future meetings we act with a little bit more professionalism. We'll now move to report BN 5 2023. We have a speaker on the item, Mr. Stuart Walker. Mr. Walker, please come forward. So is Mr. Walker speaking against the recommendation? Mr. Walker, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. Bit new to all this for me, but I'm Stuart Walker. I live on 40 Millfield Road, Millfield, and the 11th Avenue intersection. Basically, I've been fighting, you would say, with council about this intersection since they put it in. It all started with when it all went through. No one was told, no one in the street, but we were told there was letters dropped out, but there was not. They basically rushed this intersection through, put a stop sign on a corner that when you look to the left, you can't see down there. So you basically have to drive halfway out in the middle of the road to see down to the left. There's daily acts like near misses, beeps, everything going on since it's gone through. And then you've got the other side, which I live on. They've put an island in the middle of the road, which tries to steer the people to look down to the left. But as you look down to to the left or come around from the right to go down Millfield Road, you're basically steering straight at my driveway now. People are cutting the corner, which is onto the sort of the front of my house or the verge, to try and use more road because of the island, which when I'm pulled up now in my driveway, I'm half on the road. That never used to happen until they put this intersection through. The reason we got told was because there was a couple of cars over the years that had gone through the ladies on the corner house, which I'm to believe that might have been 2 in 30 years, where now every day there's like a near miss through this intersection. You can't see down to the left, basically, but we were told by, I think it was someone Jeffries at the time, we had Bob Pinson come out when it was first done. He agreed he said it was dangerous, he didn't like it. I've had an email still from him that he said that. Nothing was done. Yeah, I could just keep going on and on and on, but I've got a picture here from where the lines are actually painted on the road, when there is road there, because there is none now, because it's all taken from people cutting the corner. It steers straight at my house. I don't know, Jessica, if I can hand that around. The bin on the where you can see the lines come around the corner, you see the bin. My driveway's right behind that, and see where the lines are pointing at the bin and going up into someone's corner of my house and my neighbour's house. That's all to try and give you a bit of road length because of this new intersection they've put in. It's a danger. The buses can't get around the corner. Trucks were going up around and over the gutter to get around the corner. You name it, it's happened out there. And that's all since they put this intersection in. I've got other people here in the street, they can all vouch for me about the near misses, the danger, the hazards, kids trying to walk around on the footpath, like the footpath which used to be a bit there, the dirt, is now a quarter of the road, and people are just running over these little steel bollards sort of thing to cut the corner and try to miss the intersection they've put in. My thing, they spent all this money putting this intersection in. If they were worried about the lady down the road, I know we were told by Alan Stapleton why it was pushed through.
It's time. Is there extension? Councillor Painter, seconded Councillor Moores. No debate. All those in favour. It's unanimous. You have a further minute.
Yeah. Basically, I was saying, we put all this money in doing this intersection to create heaps more trouble, heaps more problems, heaps more hazards. They could have just put a guardrail up over on the other side. That would have fixed that problem with what they're saying. Like I said, Alan Stapleton told us the real reason why that intersection got through and we weren't notified. That was to give the estate a free fare, which they should be going in down the other end. But anyway, it's we've tried and we've tried and tried, and Bob Vincent even said that he's seen problems with it, but still nothing happened. It's a danger, it's a hazard. People's lives are at risk, but no one seems to care.
Okay.
Money talks.
That's the time. So, any questions, Councillor Judd?
Nice to meet you in person. We've had so many phone calls about this intersection. I just want to clarify for anyone that was here, I think you've actually put it down wrong, that you're not against my notice of motion, that you're for it.
Yeah.
I know everyone was sort of looking around and whatnot. So this notice of motion is for Stuart and everyone in his street, with the intersection being quite dangerous. I've actually drove them myself. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. And without you, I wouldn't have got this far, because this is the first time anyone's actually told us how to apply to get in here. Me and John, my neighbour, which is away, unfortunately, in Europe, he would have been here, he would have given you a lot more. He would have had all the dimensions of the road and this laneway that they've made a dual laneway now. It doesn't meet standards, but I reckon it does.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Is that it for me?
I might just ask, just before you run, so you're aware that it's gone to the traffic committee before for review. And you're aware that we can send it back and they can look at it again, but by us supporting, which I'm not sure what the councillors will support, but if we go down that path, there is no guarantee that this will actually be changed.
Yeah, well, it's probably a little bit further than what we've had before. It was terrible. You go out there, if you can see down there, I'll give anyone $1,000 if they can pull up to this intersection and look to the left and see down this laneway, which was a laneway, but now it's a dual carriageway. And people coming up, if you can do that, I'll give $1,000 out to anyone sitting here.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Moores.
Thanks for your presentation. And like you're saying, is that, it's dangerous, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I know that hazards, near miss creates an accident. So would you like to see it, as a question, go back to the traffic control and let them reassess it again?
Well, it depends who's doing it, because I know the other end, don't want to get too diplomatic into it, but it sort of looked like the money got handed out and that's where as far as it got. Because John, like I said, my neighbour, he's an engineer, and he went back through all the histories of the road lengths and everything from the streets, and there's no way it can meet the standard, but we're being told it does, so what else can I do? All I can say is that I'd hate to be anyone connected when someone gets killed out there or maimed or a kid gets run over, because that's what's going to happen. And I'll be telling everyone, because I've got all these emails, and I'll be giving them to all the insurance people and everyone involved.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions. Please thank Mr. Walker for his presentation. We'll now move on to deal with report BN5 2023. Moving that way, Councillor Jerd.
Okay. Refresh my memory. Am I starting with my motion?
You're moving that way from what's in front of you, seconded by Councillor Painter.
Sorry, it's just a little out of order tonight with the notice of motion at the start. Okay, so the General Manager forward a request to the Traffic Committee to reassess the intersection of Millfield Road and 11th Avenue for safety concerns that residents have over the position of the stop sign, the vegetation and the speed of the traffic. Point 1, stop sign moved from Millfield Road to 11th Avenue. Point 2, safety barrier around the intersection to project residents and their property. I put this notice of motion forward as I've gone. Can I go on to that part?
Yep.
Okay. Motion forward as I've gone to meetings about guardrails. I've spoken to council about stop signs and how dangerous it is. This is the last resort. I hope that all councillors tonight have gone to this intersection and seen it for yourself, that visually you cannot see what is coming up that hill. I refuse to turn right out of Millfield Road onto 11th Avenue. I hope that tonight you can all support these residents living with this road and the dangers of it to have it reassessed. We need to look after our residents, and I sure as hell don't want a phone call from Stuart to say the worst has happened. A car crash has crashed into my family out the front of my property, or a phone call from another resident who has gone to turn right and they've had a car hit them coming up 11th Avenue. So it would be great if everyone could support this tonight. Thank you.
Yeah. No other speakers. Let's put the motion. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move on to report BN6 2023. Speaking for the recommendation is Ms. Jessica Alder. Ms. Alder. Thank you. Ms. Alder, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Should we put some heels on? Good evening, Mayor, councillors and residents. My name is Jessica Adler and I'm a resident of Cessnock and have been my whole life. I wanted to speak in favour of this motion tonight, as Cessnock residents deserve transparency around the plans for their community into the future. I want to raise my concerns about Cessnock moving more and more towards smart city infrastructure and the implications of this. Smart cities are being rolled out globally under the guise of convenience and technological advancement. However, for me, this signals a destruction of personal connection, loss of jobs as a result of digitalisation, and major concerns around the protection of our privacy and autonomy as individuals. We are seeing this already within our local community, with a push towards using self-checkouts at supermarkets and the closure of businesses such as the ANZ branch. More and more private information is being collected and stored online. More and more surveillance is being installed under the premise of safety. However, who has access to this data and to these systems? Or who could potentially gain access? Elon Musk at the World Government Summit in 2017 referenced the idea of a universal basic income due to technological advancements. What impact will this have on our employment within our community, on young adolescents trying to get their first job, or parents trying to provide for their family with high costs of living? While smart technology can be seen as convenient and easy, to what extreme will this go, and at what cost will this ultimately be to each of us, our friends, and our family? Smart cities are driven by technology such as smart meters or smart grids, and this all links to the current buzzword of sustainability. With increased monitoring of carbon emissions and a push to be more sustainable, what will this look like into the future when coupled with smart technology? A digitalised economy with a universal basic income, where purchases and income can be controlled based on your carbon emissions? This could also have implications for many other areas of life, such as restrictions on travel, or at the very least, the threat of this being taxed, such as the recent congestion tax proposed in Melbourne. So ultimately, what will this look like for Cessnock? How will this better our community, and what will be the costs associated, not just financially? I recently wrote to the Greater Cities Commission and asked what they identified were the main concerns in rolling out the Six Cities initiative. I received a response from Christian Beetzel, Director of Monitoring and Evaluation, who didn't directly identify any concerns but stated, "A central focus of engagement in the preparation of plans has been feedback on the current state of strategic plans across all 6 cities, particularly with councils to understand local considerations and strategic priorities. An important source of community feedback comes through councils and their current program of community strategic plans. With this in mind, I would again like to highlight the importance of this motion tonight in keeping the local residents informed and actively engaged in the plans for their community. It is also important to note the role that council has in providing feedback about the wants and needs of the residents that they are elected to represent."
Time's expired. Moved Councillor Jode, seconded Councillor Painter for an extension of time. All those in favour? It's unanimous. 1 further minute.
Yep, thank you. So I was just saying, I wanted to note, the important role that council plays in providing the feedback around the wants and needs of the residents that you guys are elected to represent. And also, in order to actively engage the community, it would be good to see more events that address the community in public forums, which are open to questions and feedback directly. And it would be also good to see the council add a time slot to the agenda for the public to ask questions during council meetings. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Jerd, you're asking a question.
Yeah, just got a couple of questions for Jess. I just want to know, where did you get your information about these smart cities from?
Yeah, so smart cities isn't something that's kind of new. It's a global initiative that's being rolled out at the moment, so there's lots of information actually available widely online. So I've been looking at things internationally, but also looking at the Six Cities initiative and the Greater Cities from the Greater Cities Commission. So as I mentioned when I spoke, I've been in contact with them, just following up about what that kind of looks like for our community. And then also looking at strategic planning from the council and just thinking about what does that mean for our community and what's that look like for Cessnock.
I've got another question for you. What do you find the most concerning about the information of what you found?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's really concerning the impact that this may have on our lifestyle, and I think it probably lends to the speaker earlier as well around, the changes in land size development and higher density housing in an area that I've grown up and lived in all my life, and I'd hate to see the community that we have now changed into, something that's a digitalised version, less personal. You see that every day where you go to the shops and you're encouraged to use the self-checkouts rather than have a face-to-face interaction with someone. So that's a big concern, and also the privacy factor. I mean, we've seen recent things with data breaches around Optus, and more information is being collected and stored online. So the push towards that is a concern as well.
And one last question. How do you feel if this notice of motion isn't passed tonight to get the information to clarify what it is? Yeah,
look, I think it would be quite disappointing. I think that, as a community, we want transparency. We want to know what's going on. I think that's pretty evident here tonight as well. So yeah, I think it's all about clear and open communication, and that's what we're looking for.
Thank you very much.
Question from Councillor Hill. Councillor Hill has the floor.
Thank you for the presentation. We're very well spoken, and as someone who works in IT, I have a very keen awareness of technology concerns around the community. My question was in the enclosure for this month's council agenda, which I will admit is only available 1 week prior to the meeting, but in the enclosure on page 376, there is a copy of a memo that was provided to Councillor Jern and us other councillors with the same questions from this notice of motion answered by with answers from our Director of Planning that was given to us in January. What was your, were you able to review those answers given, and what were your thoughts and position on those?
I did see the item listed in the agenda, and I clicked on the link to try and go to that. With the agenda page hundreds of pages long,
Yep.
I couldn't find it.
I can appreciate that.
And I guess that's sort of my rationale for having a bit more of community interest and community open forums to discuss things like this, because I think people don't have time, people don't know where to look, people don't know how to look.
Yes.
So I think that it's really important that we have a way to communicate this information rather than just solely me having to find one page that's in a 400 and something page document.
Yes,
Yeah.
Councillor Watton.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just concerning your research, you seem very well researched concerning this matter. Do you have any concerns with the correlation or, even straight relation between what's happening? Have you researched what's going on overseas, particularly with Oxford and
Yeah.
Cambridge? Do you see similarities there in your words or in your, mind between what's going on there and what's happening in Melbourne? And
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a really big correlation. As I said, the smart city thing is a global initiative, so it's not something that's a new idea, I guess, in the rollout of it. I don't know whether you've seen as well around some of the residents not being particularly happy with some of the measures that have been put in place, such as bollards in streets to prevent access to certain streets over in England. And yeah, I mentioned about the congestion tax that was proposed recently in Melbourne as well. So I think that with this sort of issue, it's not something that all of a sudden bang is put in place, but there's certain measures that are put in place gradually over time. And it's similar to the development that was discussed earlier.
Excuse me, can I just interrupt? Excuse me, ma'am, you're not allowed to film in the chambers. No photography or filming. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was just saying, I think it's similar to the development that was discussed earlier where all the zoning for that was, 12 years ago, but it's only becoming evident now what the implications of that really are. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities, and that's why I'm here talking tonight, because that's obviously a really big concern.
okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a couple of questions? So, one of the biggest concerns you've got is around privacy and digital monitoring, and you sort of would be opposed to an increase in that?
Am I opposed to increases in?
Digital monitoring of people around the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just secondly, so are you aware that of the so-called like smart cities thing that's already been advised that Cessnock is not a member of any smart cities initiative?
In the email that I received back from the Greater Cities Commission, he said to me, the draft region plan and first 3 city plans for Greater Sydney are programmed to be released for public consultation in Q3 2023. The further 3 cities of Lower Hunter and Greater Newcastle City, Central Coast and Illawarra are to follow in early 2024. So he seemed to kind of give the indication that we were part of those
I think
kind of
there's a
regions.
considerable amount of confusion in what the Greater Cities Commission is and the Smart Cities Initiative, and they are 2 completely separate bodies and ideals.
Yeah, can you explain the difference?
I will in debate, I'm sure.
Okay, yep.
Yep. Okay, no further questions. You're finished. Yep. Please thank Ms. Adler for her presentation. Now moving on to report BN 6 2023. Moving the motion is Councillor Jerd. Is it seconded? Councillor Watton. Speaking on that, Councillor Jerd.
Okay. Sorry, I'll just wait till that goes. Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so that the General Manager bring a report back to Council regarding smart cities and the advantages and disadvantages to the community in the report will require, 1, that has Cessnock already signed up to join the Smart Cities transformation? 2, if we are already a member, who authorised this, when and why hasn't the community been consulted on this and what's involved? 3, what is the cost to the residents, including prior to signing up to current and future? 4, how will this impact the lives of the residents? 5, will this mean we'll be part of a 6-city region zoning? Okay. So smart cities, all the 15-minute cities, there's so many names, and why I put this notice of motion on tonight. I first learned about these smart cities through the local government newsletter emails we received. I put this notice of motion forward last month and it got denied due to it being a councillor's request for information. I argued that it is not a councillor's request for information, it is in the public's interest. I received an email from our General Manager who said, quote, the 6-City Initiative is a state government project that we, like all other councils within the area boundaries, have automatically included into. The Commissioner for our region is Matt Ennicott. After you get a formal response on this one in memo, you may consider drafting a notice of motion to invite Matt to a councillor briefing. Unfortunately, I didn't want to do the briefing. I want an open briefing for the residents to hear what's involved with these 15-minute cities, as this is in the public interest. We then had a councillor briefing on the 3rd of February where the Hunter Regional Plan Directors Daniel Simpkins, Malcolm McDonald and Jonathan Wall come to speak about the plans. How everything will be so great in these 15-minute cities that everything you will need will be within your 15 minutes. I asked at this briefing, is this the same as Oxford in England, and got told yes, that we are currently doing this in Melbourne. I don't know if anyone has looked at what's happening in Melbourne, but Service for Victoria, and I hope that's what it's called, just had a travel survey where residents were given a GPS to have their daily movements monitored onto that GPS. Now, I get in the mail this week a letter from Service New South Wales that says the survey collects information about people's day-to-day travel, where they go, why they travel, what times of the day they travel, and what forms of transport they use. But unlike Melbourne, ours is a piece of paper that I have to fill in like you're on your learner's licence. After that briefing, I got the link off our mayor to go read myself the Hunter Regional Plan, which is 174 pages. The link is on my Facebook and the mayor's for anyone who wants to download and have a read. I found the most interesting was starting from page 33, which said create 15-minute neighbourhoods to support mixed, multi-module, inclusive and vibrant communities. What does that mean? They go on to say any planning proposal or local strategic planning statement that does not comply with a strategy in this objective must demonstrate how the following performance outcomes will still be achieved. Now, so 1, any planning proposal or local strategy planning statement that does not comply with a strategy in this objective must demonstrate how the following performance outcomes will still be achieved. 1, all urban settlement patterns maximise the use of existing infrastructure and reduce travel demand, especially by car. 2, neighbourhoods maximise mobility, independence and active and public transport opportunities. 3, neighbourhood provide local access to education, jobs, services, open space and community activities. 4, neighbourhood encourage healthy lifestyles with opportunities to experience and engage in cultural, entertainment, sport and recreation and educational and activities. 5, neighbourhood establish or reinforce local identity. 6, public spaces are designed to invite community interactions and economic, social and cultural activity. They enable a sense of social inclusion, well-being, comfort and belonging. 7, places are designed to be greener to support the regeneration of and connection to the natural environment. So Are they saying if we want to develop and you can't show how you are planning on using existing infrastructure and reduce travel demand, especially by car, that it will not be allowed? That is a part of our planning assessments. There's some of the other standouts: managing the diversity of housing types, including attached dwellings, dual occupancy and multi-dwelling housing, organised and clustered to support walking, cycling and public transport within 15 minutes from your home. The regional plan re-images cities, towns and suburbs across the Hunter as mixed neighbourhoods where people can access their everyday needs within a 15-minute walk or cycle from where they live. A focus on 15-minute mixed-use neighbourhoods where most needs can be met within 15 minutes walk, bike or drive for people in rural areas. It is no secret the pandemic has changed the way we live and work. Introducing net zero emissions as a guiding principle for all planning decisions, leadership in reaching net zero emissions represents a key guiding principle. Now, this is just some of the things that are listed on this paperwork that I read. And there's still so many questions. So, because I'm running out of time, quickly, to restore the community's faith in the council, please vote yes.
Okay. Speaking, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Val. Goodness me, just hopefully I didn't have a question from the beginning of your comments, because I've probably forgotten the breadth of what was said at the start. Just a question directed for the General Manager. The request in this notice of motion is as almost identical to the question that Councillor Jerd put to and got answers from the Director of Planning. Would you be able to provide advice on whether or not a report brought back by your office would include any more detailed information as opposed to what the memo already included?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, any report brought back to council would have exactly the same information that's already been provided.
An additional question, if I could, Mayor Savelle.
Yep, Councillor Hill.
I did recall in Councillor Jerd's comments, she referred to a briefing we had with some personnel from the Department of Planning in regards to the Hunter Regional Plan, and the comment was made that they confirmed that they believed that the stated intent of the plan would be the same as Oxford. I don't recall that they confirmed that was the intent. I think in my recollection, I would like to perhaps have a follow-up, if I can get a question taken on notice, is that our queries were some of the intentions of a 15-minute city to improve infrastructure and services nearby to where people live, if that was similar to certain other initiatives taking place in other locations around the world. I don't believe their comments referred to the fact that we intended to do the same thing in regards to closing off streets and things like that, because I know Cessnock, I almost couldn't pick a more different location to Cessnock than Oxford, be it maybe New York City, and the thought that we would try to implement such similar policies in an area like Cessnock is, I think a little bit absurd. I personally think the idea of having services closer to me, to where I live, is great. I'm very fortunate that I can work within 5 minutes of my home, and I didn't previously used to do that. I used to work upwards of an hour away from my home, and the benefit of being able to do a lot of my everyday activities, shopping and working and my leisure close to my house, I think is great. And I don't believe that any of these plans have that intent of locking us within that area. I believe that their intent is to enable us to have easier access to these services and this infrastructure.
Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not quite sure where to start, though. I agree with Councillor Hill in that the briefing information, that we had a lot of robust discussion with the two gentlemen, I think, that was doing the briefing around what that they were talking around the planning, and we certainly gave them information around the lack of transport in Cessnock to even think that we could be a city that everything happens in 15 minutes because you wait 4 days for the bus. So I don't think that we are going to see it happen. I agree. I don't think that we're going to see us be a smart city. And I'm actually really annoyed that councillors would put on social media that this councillor signed up to something that we haven't. And the answer was given on the 18th of January. The answer was given on the 18th of January to us as councillors through a memo. No, we have not signed up to be a smart city, yet you read on social media in the last 24 hours that we have. That just promotes fear within our community. I think all of our community members get to have their fair say. That's why we're elected. And if anybody wants to talk to me about it, they certainly can. The information that were provided back in the memo on the 18th of July answers all of 18th of January answers all of the questions that are on the screen. I don't understand how we can keep going on and on and on when the answers are already there. I am sure if there is a decision to be made whether this council is part of a smart city or not, we will know about it. It won't be just a decision.
The gallery will remain silent while councillors are speaking. They are not here to interject into debate, and if the gallery continues to do so, I will be asking them to be removed.
The 6 cities is a legislation by the New South Wales government. So rather than knocking on council's door, which you certainly can, I'm not saying you can't, but let's talk to the state government and the state member about this before coming to council, because unfortunately, and if members of the gallery come here every Wednesday when we have a meeting, they'll have an appreciation that legislation bounds what this council. I can talk till I'm blue in the face against what the state government's doing, but sometimes they make decisions and we just have to adhere to it. That's just the reality of it. We can do.
The gallery, please, this is the final warning, or I will be asking people to leave.
And I heard a comment behind me that we work for you, and we totally do. And we have meetings on a weekly basis with different departments of the state government. Our staff do it on a regular basis. So to sit there and think that we don't represent you, we do. And if you don't think I represent you, that's your opinion, and you are absolutely allowed to have it. Though I don't believe this is the right way to go about it. If we want to have a serious conversation, then let's have a serious conversation rather than putting out into the social media world that we've signed up for something that this council has not signed up for. And if you were here at the briefing with the 2 gents, you'll know that there was pushback from us as councillors. We didn't agree with everything that they said. We talked about the lack of transport. We talked about I would love to go and see a doctor, go to school, or my kids go to school within 5 minutes. I think that'd be fantastic. Is it realistic for this town? No, it's not. And they are the concerns that we push back on the 2 guys there. They walked away a bit red in the face because I don't think they were expecting us to push back as much as we did. But we do. We do represent the community, and I'm sure that we will all make some noise and we will have those discussions if smart cities come on the table. But at the moment, we are not a member of smart cities.
Councillor Watton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is obviously like a highly contentious issue, and there's a lot of things getting around about this matter. And I think it is a right thing for us to do as a council is to bring it up into a public forum and speak on it and debate on it in public. And I understand your frustrations. I share them with the state government, but we have to start somewhere. We have to voice collectively what our concerns are, and there are a lot of concerns about this. I guess to add a bit more clarity, and it's in relation to Objective 3 concerning 15-minute neighbourhoods, which is in the report that was cited. So it's the Hunter Regional Planning document. Maybe another dot point 6 as an amendment, as a proposed amendment. I'd like to see request a report on what smart cities would actually entail, what they cost and impact on development processes, and also anticipated impact on residential lifestyle in general. We may not be signed up to it like right now, but I watch trends. I observe things just like everyone. I have a critical mind, and I want to be ahead of the curve. I don't want to be like sitting and waiting until it's actually here. Let's ask some questions now, so we can actually make informed decisions. So I'd like to propose an amendment if I could.
Yeah, so the wording of the amendment.
We need I remember some assistance with that because it was I sent
Yeah,
through
it was
late.
a
Sorry.
late submission.
Good day.
So the wording is to create a dot point 6.
Something there, GM.
The Hunter Regional Planning document talks about 15-minute cities.
Mhm.
No, yeah, the Hunter Regional,
Planning document.
so create a dot point 6 onto it. That the General Manager provide a report on what smart cities entails. And what is the cost and impact on development processes, and anticipated impacts on residential lifestyle.
Sorry, man. Might need to just change the wording on smart cities.
It's your thing. I was just going off.
I know. Yes, I do apologise. I think the right language to use there instead of smart cities would be 15-minute cities because that's what the document cites. I just want to get it right. What's on the actual Hunter Regional Planning thing? So I do apologise.
So
You can do slash. I'm happy with that. Okay, let's cover both. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hawkins.
just flagging they are again two very different things. Yeah, the director. So is this adding to the thing? Is that accepted by Councillor Jerd? I think Councillor Watton was the seconder. I think so. Councillor Jerd moved this motion, and Councillor Watton has seconded it, and they've both accepted it. So it now forms part of the. Yeah. Yep. It's not a new motion. And you're finished there, Councillor Watton.
I am. Thank you.
Councillor Grine.
Thank you, Mayor Val. And I remember this, getting the briefing on this particular document myself, and I was one of the ones that actually pushed back on it because logistically it just doesn't make sense. I actually think, I asked them a couple of times to give me $1 billion to get it started if they wanted to get it happening. We just do not have the infrastructure in place. We do not have public transport in place. Are we happy about the state certificate site at Huntley approving 217 square metre blocks? No, we are not. But again, it wasn't our decision. So if anyone, look, if it comes anywhere near what you're saying it's going to be, I'll be with you. I'll be standing right beside you. But I just don't see it. It's billions of dollars worth of infrastructure that just to pull this off in our LGA. And I don't see it happening. And I asked for a chat 3 times. So, thank you.
Councillor Moores.
Thank you. We were all here for this speech, and if you can remember back, I asked the 2 people that turned up what train they got here, and they said, no, we didn't get one. So then I asked them what bus they got here, and they said, no, I didn't come by bus. So they knew at that meeting we haven't got any infrastructure in place. Now, if you're looking at Oxford, they've got the underground railway. It's fantastic. And you can get places within 15 minutes like that. Here we've got the underground tunnels the miners have done for us, but we've got no rails there yet. But also, we can understand, we haven't even got first-class roads in place. So let's worry about that first before we worry about 15 minutes. We're a long, long way away from it, and I will never see it. Thank you.
Councillor Painter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would love to see more services closer to my home, and along with Councillor Moores, I run a transport business, and I do hundreds of miles every day, and there's just no way in my lifetime we're going to get anywhere near a 15-minute city. I agree with Councillor Jerd that I have concerns about my personal freedoms. I have family in Adelaide and Melbourne, which I like to visit whenever I want to visit, and so I don't want my freedoms and my liberties and my lifestyle impacted. But there's just no way that I feel a 15-minute city is ever going to take place in my lifetime in this area. So I think you have to take the General Manager at face value on the answers that he's given, and I think that asking him to bring another report when he's already provided answers to the question, I think it could be a little bit of a waste of money. And I do agree, obviously there's a lot of passion and a lot of interest in this subject, but like Councillor Moore says, we don't even have third-rate roads in our city, so if we can get a pothole-free city, I'll be stoked.
Okay. Before you wrap up, I just have a asked to make some comments and clarity around things on this. There's been a lot of discussion about a council memo that has gone out to councillors, and so I think I need to provide some of that information because the questions in the memo are very similar to the questions here tonight. And so, has Cessnock signed up to join the Smart Cities transformation? The answer in the memo, no. Number two, if we're already a member, who authorised it, when, why hasn't the community consulted? The answer, no, Cessnock is not a member of Smart Cities. Number three, what is the cost for residents, including prior to signing up the current future? The answer to that is, it's not applicable because we're not members. Number four, will this impact the lives of residents? The answer, not applicable. Again, we are not members. We are here talking about this. The last point talks about the 6 cities zoning region, and there's been a lot of discussion around the Hunter region plan. As was already mentioned tonight, this is a state government determined determined initiative through legislation that brings together 6 major cities across the state, that being the Lower Hunter Metropolitan, the Central Coast, the Illawarra, the Eastern Eastern Metro City of Sydney, the Western Parkland City, and the Greater Western Aerotropolis area. So 3 in Sydney, 3 regions, all connected through. So I went on to the Greater Cities website and had a look about the About Us section, and I'll read, our role is to coordinate and align planning that will shape the future of our region, accelerating delivery of key innovation districts and lead discussion on major city shaping issues. At the Commission, we help, .1, create good jobs closer to where people live. .2, opportunities to attract world-class industry and talent. .3, make the cities more productive, livable and sustainable for everyone. And then it talks about our purpose that says to collaboratively build the scale, scope and potential for better jobs, housing, education, health, environment and lifestyle opportunities to transform our local places and global positioning. So this is about 15-minute cities, and we were all advised in this briefing around the Hunter Regional Plan, 15-minute cities are not talking about any limits on where you can travel. They're not talking about any of that. This is complete conspiracy theory propaganda. The 15-minute cities are about when we consider planning. So we all complain, and you've heard it here tonight, how many have complained about the roads and congestion and traffic and potholes here in this debate tonight? We've said we need to plan things better. And what the Greater Cities Commission is about is giving us a voice at the table for our region with the heads of the departments, the heads of the Department of Planning, the heads of the Department of Health, the heads of the Department of Education, to say when we are opening land, like has been opened in Huntlee, for example, or like's going on out in Bellbird, or what's happened at Cliffley, Head and Greeter, Huntlee have got thousands of homes out there at the moment. They have no high school for people to go to out of that whole region, and there's been no planning done for that. What this is talking about is saying people should be able to go to high school within an area reasonably close to their home. They shouldn't have to travel to Rutherford. They shouldn't have to travel to Singleton. They shouldn't have to come into Mount View High School here and undertake that. This is about saying that if you need to go to a doctor's, there should be neighbourhood shops around near where you live that you can go and do that. This is about putting in infrastructure in the planning process so that we don't end up with the problems that we as a council and we as a community are left with dealing with from the challenges of developments that were approved 10 and 20 years ago. This is exactly what we've been calling for. We want a voice at the table. We want to be talking about these things. The Greater Cities Initiative gives us that voice at the table in regards to that. It has nothing to do with smart cities. It doesn't reference it. All the discussion in that document that was referenced, I don't recall seeing smart cities mentioned at all. And to go back and to conclude about where we're at, and I was laughed at when I asked the question, but I was asked the question about privacy, observation, monitoring of people. We've got a motion up tonight that the same councillors that are supporting us wasting council resources on giving us answers that we've already been given has a motion up to increase the amount of CCTV across our local government area. Now, councillors will be looking at that tonight, and I hope you're all in here to watch that debate and cheer from the gallery about whether you want more CCTV or whether you don't. But thank you, councillors. Please take that into consideration. Jess, in closing.
Can I quickly ask a question first?
Yep.
So the Hunter Regional Planning module, that document that I was talking about, is that what we follow? When we do any planning in our council area, the Hunter Regional Planning, is that what we follow?
The director may provide further commentary, but the Hunter region, so there's a state plan done by New South Wales that feeds into local regional plans that come down from when we create our own community strategic plan and our local environment planning framework. So it feeds down the chamber and we create our own touch, as we were talking about in previous debate tonight, about the zonings we want, where we want things to happen. But it's a feed down approach, and I'll let the director clarify.
Just to add to that, Mr. Mayor, the council in any decision it makes has to be consistent with state and federal legislation.
Okay. So on page 33, it talks about creating 15-minute neighbourhoods. So this here is to get clarification so that every resident out there knows what, when they read this paperwork, what it is, what's involved and how it's going to affect their life. I can't see what the issue is about getting clarification. We ask it all the time for clarification. And I'm not putting out conspiracies. I've only gone off the facts that I have been given. Nobody's talking about their freedom getting lost. I'm talking about what is involved with these smart cities, 6 cities. I don't know what you want to call it because they keep changing the name. But to say that we didn't get clarification, to say that we're not already slightly signed up is wrong. You would have got the email as well from our general manager. He's already talked about it, that we have been automatically included into it. So I just want clarification so the residents have clarification on what this Hunter Regional Planning means. Why does it keep talking about 15-minute cities and what's involved in them? Thank you.
With no further debate, we'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Councillors Watton and Jerd. Those against? Councillors Jackson, Laws, Burke, Bryan, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Painter and Saval. I'll declare the motion lost. I will please ask you to leave. I will please ask you to leave the chamber. Please remove yourself from the chamber. We'll now move on to the consideration and adoption of all reports by Englobo. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having read and considered the reports in the agenda related to items GMU 1 2023, minutes of the Community Engagement Awards Grants Committee, GMU 2, minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee, meeting held 7th of February, PE 9...
Please just pause there for a second, Councillor Burke. Can I ask anyone that's leaving through the debate now to please leave quickly and quietly if you're on your way out, so we can continue with discussion. Okay, Councillor Burke, you have the floor.
PE 9 2023 Australian Noise Exposure Forecast Map Update for LEP, PE 11 Conflict of Interest Policy, PE 12 Development Application Performance Monitoring Report, CC 11 Minutes of the Strategic Property and Community Facilities Committee, CC 12 Investment Report February 2023, CC 13 Resolutions Tracking Report, CC 14 Exclusion of Item from the Agenda, WI 17 Footpath from Mulbring Street to Colliery Street, Aberdare.
WI 7, that is, sorry.
WI 9 Minutes of the Local Traffic Committee, CO2 2023 Section 88 Waste Levy Charges. Council adopt the recommendations as printed for those items.
And are they seconded? Councillor Sander, Councillor Jerd. Yeah, Councillor Jerd, just a question on...
Sorry, Mayor. Can the report W119/2023 be pulled out of Englo? I just had a resident point out to me that its Knockabar Correctional Entrance is part of this report, and I had read it, but I'd slipped my mind to have it pulled. I'd really like to have this report deferred so the community have the opportunity to voice their concerns.
Yes, if you're requesting it come out, it
Thank you.
will come out, WI 9. Okay, so with those in front of us, they've been moved and seconded. No debate. All those in favour? It's unanimous. The notice of intention, I've been advised by the General Manager that the report GM3 is to be removed from tonight's council agenda, so therefore there is no reason to continue on the notice of intention. There are no mayoral minutes. Any motions of urgency? No motions of urgency. We'll now move to report PE 7 2023, planning proposal, Avery's Lane, Buchanan. Moving that way, Councillor Sander, seconded Councillor Hill. Any debate? No debate. All those in favour, or just we use questions?
Sorry to make the meeting a little bit longer. Council want to rezone, that we are on Buchanan 1 report, yep, cool, just making sure. Want to rezone 259 and 261 Avery's Lane, Buchanan of the 1.38 hectares from RU2 rural landscape to R2 low density residential. It is also proposed to be mapped as an urban area lease. Why are we rezoning all these rural areas just outside of township? Is this because of the Hunter Regional Planning? On page 33 of that document, it states the 15-minute neighbourhoods.
Was that a question?
So I'm pretty much actually against this rezoning. It doesn't seem to even meet our own planning guides, because is it going to end up being like Huntley, or is it just going to be a subdivision for houses?
I can probably answer that and throw it to the director. This is a request of the applicant. The applicant has a property that has a part of the property on the high side of Avery's Lane goes down onto the flat of Buchanan. It's had 2 dwellings on that house, on that property for many years. One where a mother has one, a daughter lives in the other that has a disabled son. The mother wants to sell her property and needs but the daughter has the house set up for that purpose. And in consideration of it's effectively 2 separate properties, which has got a cliff face effectively separating them, and 2 separate entrances, that the high side of the property is deemed actually suitable for residential housing, which is what's around that with the Avery's Rise development and adjoining that, and therefore the residents said if they were to subdivide, they would lose a dwelling entitlement on their property, which is why they need to do a planning proposal. And my understanding is their intention is to keep the house that they have on the top and
So they're just doing it so that they can actually separate the 2 houses, so it's not on the same title anymore?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Speaking, Councillor Painter.
Yeah, just to clarify, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually went out and saw the resident, and what the mayor said is correct. The mother wants to sell her portion, and the daughter wants to keep her portion because her son is familiar with the area and doesn't want to move. And so the mother is quite elderly and wants to move on, but the daughter wants to stay. So it's just to accommodate that. Right.
Councillor Gryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Judge, I just wanted to confirm that I've also been out to this property, and she's a lovely lady. She works for herself. She tries very, very hard. She has got a disabled son. She's got her own nursery out there. She's very eco-friendly. She's a lovely, lovely lady and has tried for years for this to happen. So I am happy to say that I support this 100%. Thank you.
Okay, with no further debate, we'll now put the item. So all those in favour, it's unanimous. Moving on to PE 8 2023. Moving that way, Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Sander. Any discussion, Councillor Sander?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're all aware of some presentations we've had recently in regard to the Huntley DCP and the outcomes of the exhibition. Council certainly has never advocated for small blocks, and certainly the area out there, they're looking for different types of development. I don't particularly agree with the development that they're proposing, but at the end of the day, it does meet the guidelines and it does meet, it's permissible, and it's a state significant planning system again. The only good thing that comes out of this report is that we have controls over the development. If we pass this, council will have the controls over the development. Our major dramas we have is parking on site and the garbage receptacles on site as well. This will be a development such as what is on Wharf Road. There'll be small townhouses, but they are going to, I believe the developer is going to address the criticisms of council in regard to land size and also those 2 things I mentioned in regard to the parking and the bins. So if they can certainly come to a compromise, I'm happy to support this, but they do know that council is not impressed with small blocks. Thank you.
Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar to Councillor Sander is, I do believe that Huntley is a good development for the area. Am I overly impressed with the small lot sizes that have recently been introduced? No, I'm not. I appreciate the briefing or the presentation that we received from Huntley recently. I do believe that they have taken on our feedback, and there was a lot of feedback given during that. There's a lot of, I've had a lot of community approach me about the lot sizes, and I think one of the issues is that there's significant concern around parking, because in the development side that's already been there for some time, is if you park two cars either side of the road, getting an ambulance or a truck or potentially another car down there is a concern. And I think that those concerns have carried over into the small lot sizes. Look, they did provide us with some peace of mind. I appreciate that, within a development site such as Huntley, you do need a mixed development. I'm not quite sure how it's going to go. I do hope that Huntley do listen and do take on the feedback and look at the parking issues, because if you've got one or two cars per block and they're only 200 and whatever square metres wide, we're going to end up with an issue at some stage. But as I said, they did take a bit of a beating from us when they presented. But we, reiterate, we do appreciate development in this town. It allows the town to grow, though we also, doing the small blocks allows more people to live there. So therefore we need the infrastructure from the state government to be matching the pace at the same time. It's okay for the state government to come over top of council, which they do on a number of occasions, is approve something and then we're left with the mess. So hopefully that the infrastructure happens, particularly with the hospitals and stuff like that. Hopefully that happens at a rapid rate, because we need that infrastructure to support the significant development that's happening in the town.
Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was there for the briefing. It was Stephen Surname, the lead, the director for Huntley at the moment. He presented and seems to be throwing everything back on council's controls. Everything meets our guidelines, everything meets our controls. Perhaps we need to look at our internal controls, our guidelines, because when he's talking about those roads being over-engineered for a population of 6,500, 7,500, and there's not that many people living there right now, I tend to disagree. Walking around the back streets, Wine Country Drive might be okay. There might be good exit points going from Kesterton and going through Triton Boulevard, but there is, those back roads, and then when you've got the high density that we're looking at with single garages, no front yard, share the concerns. We all shared those concerns in that briefing concerning where do you put your bins. You can't put your bins really in your front yard because you're going to open up your door and hit your bins. You can't, have someone mentioned a kid's party and you're going to have 20, 30 cars parked where. So it was a pretty robust discussion. I think it all came back though, the fact of, I think we do need to look at those controls as a council and review this and learn from this, because there are major concerns that we all shared, as I mentioned, and I think it was also Councillor Jackson mentioned about fire safety from memory in that briefing. There's a lot of concerns. There's, how do you get out if you're boxed in? How do emergency vehicles get through in those back roads? So I do argue, and I'm not an engineer, but I live there, I walk around the streets often, and when two cars, four-wheel drives are parked on either opposite side of the roads, you've got a massive chicane going on there, and it's dangerous. So I think we really need to look at those controls internally. Yes, it's state significant, but as it falls within our controls, it's something we need to look at closely, I think, as a council. Thank you.
Councillor Moores.
Thank you, Mayor. What Councillor Watton is saying is quite correct. We're virtually looking at Huntley now. Let's cast ourselves back for 20 years ago when we built Vineyard Grove. It's a prime example. Two cars parked next to each other, you can't get an ambulance through. So, have we not learned from Vineyard Grove to where we're going to try and do the same thing at Huntley? Let's use our heads. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors, and I'm sure we'll all take great interest in report WI6 up tonight, which actually talks about reviewing the engineering guidelines for some of these things, and the director's commentary from earlier in the night that we have started the process of reviewing our residential zones for the LEP. We'll now put the item. All those in favour, councillors Jackson, Burke, Crine, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Painter and Saval. Those against, councillors Moores, Watton and Jerd. I'll declare it carried. Now moving on to report PE 10, 2023. Moving that way, councillor Burke. Seconded, councillor Grine. Speaking on that, councillor Burke.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say the Hunter Valley Destination Management Plan creates lots of opportunity for our region, in particular, obviously, economic development, but also tourism. It outlines our vision and our strategic framework. So when we are looking to create those opportunities or have people come to the area wanting an opportunity, then our vision and strategic framework is clear. This plan supports job growth. We already have nearly 1,700 people employed in the tourism sector, which is fantastic. This plan will support the growth of our region, and not only does visitation in the vineyards thrive, but our local community thrives on that. When there's a concert or there's something happening in the vineyards, our local cafes, our local shops, generally local owners, all benefit from that. We have a $501 million output of economic economic output in this plan, and that will only grow with this plan through to 2030. Hunter Valley, the tourism, Cessnock, the LGA, we are open for business. We're open for visitors, and this plan certainly guides that. We are known for, the plan talks about that we're known for food, wine and other beverages as time gets on. But I think now more so we're about a tourist attraction. We offer so much more than just wine that we did. And I'm excited to see our vision grow and our region grow to even think about what's going to be available in our backyard by 2030. So I 100% am behind this management plan.
Thank you, councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Saval. I'm also in support of this report and this motion. And as I'm reading through the report under the section that regards public submissions, I'd just like to congratulate our council staff and all those involved with this plan in the way that we have been able to address submissions. There is many lines of this submissions table where a submission raised by the community or the public has been addressed and the plan amended to meet with that request in the submission. And I think that shows some success in the public consultation of this plan, and that's great to see.
Thank you. We'll now put the item. All those in favour. It's unanimous. Moving on to report CC 10, 2023. Moving that way, councillor Hill. Yep. So you're moving as it is.
I'd like to move with amendment to nominate those attending. I'm not sure whereabouts logistically this wording will go, whether it's underneath point 1.
In between determine and devoting delegate would be my suggestion.
What was that, sorry?
Determine.
Yep. Excellent. And determine voting delegates for the voting delegate for the assembly to be Mayor J. Saval. And additionally, I believe it is the intent of Councillor Jackson to wish to attend the assembly as a non-voting attendee. At the end of that sentence, in the first sentence, voting delegate for the assembly
as Mayor Savelle, and that Councillor Jackson attend as a non-voting delegate. Attend as...
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
And item 2 can potentially be removed completely.
Yep, there was no motions.
So that's moved by Councillor Hill, as seconded by Councillor Grine. No debate. We'll put the item. All those in favour. Councillors Jackson, Moores, Burt, Grine, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Painter, Watton, Savelle. Those against. Councillor Jerd. I'll declare it carried. Now moving on to report WI 4 2023. Kurri Town Centre upgrade. Moving that way, Councillor Hill. Seconded, Councillor Grine. Speaking, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Savelle. It's great to see this second stage of the works in the Kurri Town Centre CBD coming to us. I'm glad to accept this tender as it stands. However, I would like to express my my comment to the staff and council that I really do hope we can have a really extensive amount of consultation done between councillors, the community and the project manager once this project moves into the early stages. The impact that the project will have on the main street and the most busy section of Lang Streets in Kurri will be detrimental if not handled well. And I believe we should go to all extents that we can to ensure that businesses are able to operate effectively during the works undertaken. And I hope that the works can be done in a timely manner and to a high quality, such as the first stage of works were.
Councillor Grine.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to please implore everyone that's involved that the consultation with these businesses is so crucial. Myself being a business owner, I know how important it is for those businesses along Lang Street. They want it, they'd love to have it, but this is a 4-month project, and I'm so happy that with council's first couple of stages that they've done, the town looks $100 million. It's probably going to cost that by the time we're finished, but anyway, thank you, council, and all the directors involved in GM. Thank you.
Councillor Painter.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I too am excited to see Kurri move ahead with the building works. I have seen a report where the cost is having cost overruns, and I'm concerned about whether it puts us down with the budget. So if we can have or those who are in charge of the project, assigning the project, can sharpen their pencils and see if there's any cost savings that they could hopefully come up with without compromising the project too much, without cutting corners. That's right. So, but I am aware where the budget is, and it's under a bit of pressure. So, and I do believe it's about a $600,000 overrun. So we can have a good look at that and see if we can't save some money somewhere.
Thank you. No further debate. We'll put the item. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to report WI 5 2023. Tender for Wattican Creek Bridge and Westcott Bridge replacements. Moving that way, Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Sander. Speaking, Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to know, is this normal practice to reject a tender and then leave it and then with this report where we are, leaving it in the hands of the General Manager to negotiate? Isn't that what the tender process is?
Does the Director want to comment? But I believe this was a very similar approach to we just did with Vine Street Bridge just recently. So, yeah, I'll hand over to the Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your question, Councillor Jerd. Yeah, when we have market failure, yeah, it's normal for us to do this to, facilitate a solution where we can do it, if we can do it. There's no guarantees, but yes, it's very normal.
Okay, thank you.
No further debate. We'll put the item. All those in favour. It's unanimous. Report WI6 2023 engineering guidelines. Moved Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Sander. Speaking Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Val. This is somewhat of a report in disguise, and I'd like to help the community and ourselves during the consultation period that this is up. Could I please perhaps add an additional dot point 3 to amend the resolution to include just to request that councillors be offered or be given a briefing to help us better understand and perhaps convey some more simple. Oh, yeah, sorry. Let me give you the wording properly first before I ramble. Be offered a briefing to the councillors. Be offered a briefing to better understand.
Just a briefing on the guidelines.
Yes,
probably.
a briefing on the proposed engineering guidelines.
Yeah.
So that we may, so they are better informed.
I don't think we need any of
No, that's fine. Okay,
Just a
excellent. Just
briefing.
stop it at guidelines would be good.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just and in support of that dot point being added as an amendment, Councillor Grine can.
And so is that amendment seconded by Councillor Sanders? Happy with that? So yeah.
Thank you.
Part of the motion.
The document itself, I believe, is so dense and so technical that us councillors have already worked quite diligently to try to understand what is included in it. However, we have been given information in the council meeting briefing that helped us to understand that the specifics of these guidelines really cover a great number of things that the community raises concerns with us, be it the width of the streets within developments, which I know has been a continual issue, especially for the residents around my residence there in Head and Greta and Cliff Lee, and a number of new developments, as well as guidelines surrounding the way that footpaths are built and driveways are installed in developments. And without better understanding of this and heavy consultation with the community, I think it would fail to achieve the goals that it can do. So I will be very glad to have the briefing and have some better understanding about what these guidelines entail. And I encourage, and I will be encouraging the community to have put in their submissions and have their say, because this very well could solve problems in the future, as Councillor Watton raised in regards to Huntley. This could be a fix to future problems that we would be able to prevent.
Thank you. Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mayor. For this report, recommendation 1, that the draft engineering guidelines for design and construction be placed on public expedition for a period of 28 days, and if there are no significant public submissions received, that the guidelines be automatically adopted under the General Manager's delegations. If I don't like a DA, I vote no, as what is classed as significant submission that can change that DA. As this report clearly states, if I vote yes now and it comes back with no significant submissions, it will be accepted. Thank you.
What about Councillor Hill? To amend his.
To that point raised by Councillor Jerd.
No, he's moving it as amendment.
I would then raise, if Councillor Jerd has not done so, raise that the initial point 1 be amended so that the guidelines return to council for final determination.
So after 28 days and then end, a report be returned.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
report.
Yeah, a report.
Be returned to council.
For final determination.
For determination.
Yeah, for determination.
And then, so delete the rest of that sentence and delete dot point 2. So Councillor Hill has amended his resolution, which has also been seconded by Councillor Sander. Speaking on this amended resolution, Councillor Grine.
Thank you, Mayor Savelle. I have had a look at this document, or tried to anyway. It's like reading Chinese, and I don't know Chinese, so I would love to have, I just want a breakdown to help us as councillors explain this to our community, because it will affect them overall. Yes, we are looking at fixing the issues that we've had, because I believe this document goes back from 1994, is that correct? 1994, so it's time that it is updated. But essentially, we want community feedback on this, so for us to have a better understanding so that we can then talk to our communities and let them know what's happening. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, with no further debate, let's put the item. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to report WI 8 2023. Moving that way on the recommendation. It's Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Sander. Speaking on that, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Saval. This report is one that I support somewhat out of necessity for the benefit of tourism in the community. However, I feel I need to voice my concerns with the way in which the process for this event has gone through on the applicant. Because of the way in which the application has been processed on the applicant's end, it has put council in quite a difficult position in the way in which we are approving this traffic plan at such a late stage. In comparison to an additional event being held on the exact same day over in Curry for the Nostalgia Festival, that's something that we have approved at a previous meeting, not in the month of the event happening. I'm disappointed to see perhaps a lack of due diligence being done by the applicant. Traffic management for this event is going to be so important with how busy the weekend is. It's the weekend of the Nostalgia Festival in Curry, the the state election. There's a number of events on up the vineyards quite close to this event, and I think that for an event that has been held previously in the LGA, I would expect perhaps a little more attention to be given by the applicant to ensure that all the correct things are in place to ensure traffic is managed correctly on the day. I hope that traffic is managed correctly through the conditions and the regulations endorsed by the local traffic committee, but I would worry that I could not support a continued pattern or trend such as this year to year, where the applicant perhaps isn't doing enough prior to the event to ensure everything runs smoothly.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Moores.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Dunn here, Hill, sorry, because on this particular day, everything seems to be happening. And also, there's a concert on as well that you forgot to say. So you've got the air show, and if they get there and they can't park there, there's no room, then they're going to start driving into the vineyards, and then they start to wingle-dingle with a concert parking, which is, I just think there's not a lot of great thought gone into this. With Curry having their show, everything's on at one time. Thank you.
Okay, we now put the item, Councillor Grine.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm really, really not happy with this particular application, as Councillor Hill and Moores have said. The time frame that everyone else has had to put in, and this is a pattern of behaviour for this particular event, and I believe that these guys should be told to start putting their application in for next year, because we're a week or something out from this particular event, and the traffic chaos that it's going to cause with Red Hot Summer out at Roche Estate. And I come from being out there. I know what the traffic's going to be like. It's going to be a nightmare. And it's no fault of us, but these organisers should have been better prepared. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Hawkins.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I probably should take this opportunity to thank our staff that have been involved in this application. It's been unorthodox, I suppose, to say the least. There's been quite a lot of over and above what we would go to for a normal applicant. So I think it's fairly obvious that council recognise the benefit of the air show, both in economic benefit as well as sort of cultural development. It's great to see something happening at our airport. It was closed for roadworks or airport works, runway works for so long. This will be a great thing for our area, but I just hope we can get it right. And I would probably flag that there'll be a fair bit of council involvement on the day, monitoring that things are in place. And certainly if we need to suggest improvements for next year, if it happens again next year, but I think we'll be proactive, and I certainly hope that the applicant is proactive next year as well. But yeah, it should be a great event.
Thank you. We'll now put the item. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to report WI 9 2023, minutes of the local traffic committee. Moving that way, Councillor Burke. Seconded Councillor Grine. Speaking, Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, based off Councillor Jurd's comments for bringing this out of Engloba, and thank you for doing that. I just wanted to know, are there any risks to the jail access opening if we take TC5 out of this report tonight and defer it? Would there be any implications to us?
So I think the question is, could the jail open their access and us not have a plan in place?
Yeah, that's my question.
The Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As council, we're allowed to implement temporary works. So our plan at the moment would be to implement the current plan on a temporary basis until then, such time as full future implementation, permanent implementation, is able to take place. But yeah, essentially there is no stopping them from opening their access.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess that's my concern by delaying this tonight. And I think that having measures put in place before the jail access opens is really important. And to note that these are temporary measures. It's not the final outcome. There's been a lot of talk for a long time around the jail access and Curlew Street, and I, like Councillor Fitzgibbon, that's in the chamber tonight, have said that we need to close these streets, and we still stand by that. I know that there's been some emails coming from residents, and that's fantastic. We appreciate you giving feedback and screaming at us. We love it. I am of the view that we have to do something now so we don't miss the boat. And I, reassure the community that this is not the final measures that will be in place, but it allows us to have something in place when the jail access opens, and then we will be able to get something more permanent, like you're asking for, and that is to get these roads permanently closed.
Councillor Judd.
Oh, thank you. I was just kind of writing down my thoughts. Thanks, Anthony, Councillor Burke, for asking those questions. I think they were really good. So can I get a little bit of clarification? So if we don't defer this report tonight, we're voting on temporary access to this jail? Yes? Yep, that was what you said? Yep.
So,
okay.
Well, sorry. The road restrictions will be put
the
in
roads
place,
closed off will be temporary.
But the actual structures and things used in these are temporary structures to close these roads.
Yeah. So it's temporary measures until we work out what we're finally doing. So how do the residents know, will they be involved in the decision making of the final outcome?
So can you just clarify that, Director, for the Director?
Yeah. Sorry, do you want me to re-ask it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is tonight is temporary measures, right? So how do we go from here? Will there be discussions with the residents about the final outcome prior to it being brought to council to be debated on?
So I suppose, just to clarify, I think maybe how I've explained it's been confusing, but what we're voting on is the permanent solution, but not the final solution. We can add to it, change it in the future, but this is the permanent solution through the traffic committee now. Subject to the opening of the correctional centre entrance, we can implement this plan on a temporary basis.
Okay.
Does that
So
make
t-
sense? So what we're voting on is the permanent solution right now, but it can be implemented on a temporary basis as the entrance opens.
So I think
what are we
to
so what are we
clarify
doing?
is
Yeah.
this goes in place from now and it can stay for until it's changed.
Mhm.
But our intention is to consider the traffic, do actual road upgrades around there, which would potentially require further changes, which would come back to council for discussion. So we can amend these plans at any time through the traffic committee.
Okay. So we're not going. Let me just clarify, because we've had so many plans thrown around, and it's been a very big night tonight, and I feel my head wanting to explode. So we're going to only close off which roads again?
Ossendon and Pinchin from Curlew Street.
Okay. They're not. It wasn't ended up being the design where we were going to put cul-de-sacs in.
No.
No. It was going to be the design of where you can turn out right from the jail. Is that right? And then you could turn left from. Is it Oxenden Street?
No.
Was that the plan?
That's not in this plan. So this plan is about putting barriers across Curlew Street, from on the edge of Curlew Street onto the intersection of Ossenden Street and onto the intersection of Pinchin Street.
Yeah.
What the works that it will do is means the only way traffic coming out of the jail will be able, there'll be a no right turn, no left turn thing, but I think that's irrelevant, is that they won't actually go left because it's now a dead end street. So the only way they will go out is to Wine Country Drive and onto the state road network.
Reason why I re-asked that is because when I said what was going to be the next design, you said that we were going to stick with this design. Is that right? So I'm so confused because you've talked about what tonight is temporary, but it's going to be the basis of what's going to be final.
So
is that right?
The director can clarify, but I understand any new design and whether you're talking about new turns, left turns out of Ossenden Street or different things would require further approval of the traffic committee, which would then override this current approval. But director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. So what we're voting on is essentially the permanent treatment for now. The traffic committee doesn't consider the temporary treatments.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So closing off those roads.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just looking to see if the residents would be happy with that.
No. So.
No. Sorry.
And so you're finished, Councillor Judd. Yeah, I'll provide some commentary on this, as it's not an ideal solution. We went in support of the residents to support option 3 that was put forward. That was refused by Transport for New South Wales and has been a flat no, we're not allowed to implement that option. So our commitment to the broader residents of the Nolkabar community was to try and isolate the jail traffic from the local road network. And so the solution that's being put forward tonight is something that can be implemented quickly to allow us to stop cars. If we don't have a solution now that is supported, we run the risk of that jail entrance opening, and we're going to have rat runs all through the Nolkabar community for people to come out at every intersection, zooming past the school. We know the issues that are in Lindsay Street and Mavis Street at the moment. We don't want to see that continue into the Nolkabar community, so we have to have something in place for when that opens. This is the only thing we can do to make sure that there is something in place. It's been supported by Transport for New South Wales. We will be putting, if this is supported, we'll be putting in the barriers to prevent traffic from flowing out of the jail into the Nolkabar township. I understand the frustration of residents, predominantly in Curlew Street, is probably the most affected from this, that will have to deal with the traffic out of the jail coming to and from at certain times of the day. And we will look at future solutions about what we can do to address those concerns. I do hope that Transport for New South Wales come to the party, and hopefully Corrections fund it. But they should be putting in a set of traffic lights there on One Country Drive and Curlew Street to allow the safe flow of traffic. It is needed, and I would call on anyone with any influence over Transport New South Wales to start that process and make it happen, so that traffic will flow safely out of there and quickly. But what we need to do is we need a solution for now. This isn't going to be the long-term solution, because we can't just leave concrete barriers there as a long-term plan. We need a plan that will include proper road treatments. There needs to be roadworks done on there, and we have put some money aside in future budgets to consider those things. But we need to go away and do the plans and look at what's actually going to work, and what, importantly, what we're going to be allowed to do as well by Transport for New South Wales. Because we keep going back to the same thing, is we want what was agreed to in the first place. The answer is, I want what was agreed to in the first place as well, but it's not allowed to happen. So if we keep sticking to that, we're going to end with nothing. And therefore we need to have a solution in place. And unfortunately, this is what I see is the best solution that is available to us at the time. Councillor Moores was speaking.
Thank you, Mayor. You're saying about the traffic lights. Have we applied to say we require, or we're requesting the traffic lights?
You had discussions with
Direct infrastructure?
Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. No applications were made from council for
Well,
signals.
so we should be applying now, because otherwise it's not good at saying we need traffic lights there. If we haven't applied, they don't know we want them. And so we're going to get there and we're going to start doing the work. We're going to not have traffic lights because no one knows we want traffic lights.
Yeah, so the Director of Corporate Community Services.
Thank you, Mayor Sewell. Councillor Moores, in response to part of your question, is we have raised that with members of Transport for New South Wales and the jails during various meetings. In my time as Acting General Manager, I recall sitting in the General Manager's meeting room, and we raised this issue with them in relation to the increased traffic on Curlew Street from the jail. Their response at that time, and I'm paraphrasing, was essentially, we have no data that there's going to be increased traffic going down that road because the jail entrance is not open. So until such time as they have that, that will then give them the springboard to potentially put some traffic lights down on One Country Drive, which makes no sense because we all know once it opens, it's going to have a number of cars up and down it every week.
Yeah. And just further to the Director's comments, I remember sitting in that meeting and they asked us as council what our intentions were for that intersection, and my response was quite blunt back to them, where I responded, this is a state-generated development with the majority of traffic will be from state government employees, and it will be going onto a state road. This is not council's. Council should not be funding an intersection upgrade on a state road. That should be done by Transport for New South Wales or Corrections that are doing this process.
So just let me get this right. So if you're saying, yes, we have applied, or yes, we've got to wait for open, and you're in the General Manager's office for this meeting, where was the Director of Infrastructure? Because he just said to me, no, we haven't applied.
This was before the Director was was acting in the role.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Groen.
I actually attended this meeting. I'm not a part of the traffic committee, but I attended this meeting. As councillors, you all know that we're allowed to attend any meeting, any committee meeting. So I decided to come along to get more fully briefed on what's actually going on with this jail entrance and exit and entry, because I know how much the community is concerned about this particular. Well, it's all I've heard about since I've been on council. That was quite intense meeting. During that meeting, what I learned, and that was Transport for New South Wales in the room, what I learnt was everything that we were briefed on was lawful and the best possible solution at this particular time. And that was clarified by Transport for New South Wales on the day. It was a 4-hour meeting. It's not like we did not ask the questions. We went around and around, over and over, the history and the current circumstances of this particular exit and entry, and it was the best legal solution and option that we have at the moment. So I just wanted to let the public know that, you know, I actually made that effort to go to this meeting to be briefed properly on what the issues were around the roads. Thank you, Mayor.
You do have a question, Councillor Jode, because you've spoken. Yeah, question.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I've asked a lot of questions tonight, but so my quick question is, if we wanted to change the plans, like, so tonight we obviously vote on temporary closure, but we decided, was there discussions in this briefing about cul-de-sacs? Like, was that put forward to Transport New South Wales? Did they reject it?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I believe, and this potentially occurred before my time in the director role, but the 3 options that were consulted with the community, one which involved cul-de-sacs, were all presented to Transport for New South Wales, and when they issued a refusal, it applied to all 3 of those options.
Okay, so it is up for refusal. They can't do the cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, yes.
So would you be able to resend that?
And just to clarify, the issue with cul-de-sacs is not just limited to the transport approval for that area. It also affects the roads, Austral and Pinchin Street, to take truck access as required to get into the jail at the top end of Curlew Street. Mm-hmm. And so if that truck access needed to go, they would be going up Austral and through Pinchin and into Curlew. And those roads aren't engineered to the turning circles that are required for truck access. They're for residential streets and would need to be re-engineered and re-widened and built, which would mean that it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be a solution we could implement now to actually prevent any rat runs. It would be something that may be considered into the future if Transport were able to reconsider what they wanted to do, but it's not something that we could support tonight to have that start at the same time as the jail. If we went down that path, we would run well, effectively, I don't think it would be a risk. I think it would be 100% guarantee that jail access would open and we wouldn't have a solution in place.
Yeah. Could we get the Director of Works to check for me, because I've just been informed from residents that three options didn't include the cul-de-sacs that got sent to Transport New South Wales. So I just want to get clarification on that, if we can. Were they sent? Sorry, I've got a mad headache. It's hard to keep up tonight.
Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I can take that on notice and certainly check the 3 options that were proposed to Transport for New South Wales and confirm that. That's no worries.
Okay, thank you. So just one last question. If I vote yes for this tonight, this is just temporary and we are going to look into the best solution for Nolkabar residents?
No.
Again, the traffic committee votes on the permanent solution, but that's not to say it can't change again in the future through more traffic.
So to clarify the director's comments, the traffic committee, this plan that's in place, if we were to choose as a council to do nothing other than this, it would be allowed to stay as this. I think our commitment as a council has been to look at this. I don't just want to see the concrete barriers out there. I want to see proper roadworks done around that site, and I don't see it sitting there languishing on, and I don't think individual councillors would let it just languish on for things. We need to be looking at the planning, looking at the development around the area, looking at what other solutions can be put in place, but we also need a solution for now, and this is the solution for now. That answer.
It kind of, you're doing a little bit of double speak there, because you're saying this is temporary, we need to put it in place for the jail so that it doesn't cause a rat race. I totally agree. I'm all for putting in a temporary barrier, but the issue with it is one person's telling me that yes, it's temporary, but eventually that this will be permanent, and then two, then someone else is saying, oh well, it could change. So what I would like to be able to do is vote yes, temporarily tonight we put barriers in place to protect the Nolkabar residents, but I would like to be able to convene with Transport for New South Wales to get the best outcome. And majority of the residents want the cul-de-sac.
I might just seek some clarification, because I think we're all actually on the same page. I think we're all supporting the same outcome, and the traffic committee things only allow a permanent solution, but a permanent solution is only a permanent until you make another permanent solution on top of that. So it's something that I think we need to consider a dot point on the end, that I don't know how it would work on this, but that council continue to investigate long-term solutions for the road network around the correctional centre access. We'll get it up. So can we get this typed up as an additional? Can we go to the top? Yeah. Councillor Hawkins.
Sorry for not jumping in sooner. It's actually in the report that it's noted that ongoing monitor of traffic movements in the area would occur post-opening of the correctional centre access. There's 20 dot points of things. It went on for an hour and a half on this single subject, and this is after 4 or 5 years worth of backwards and forwards and toing and froing. All of the options come with negative drawbacks. For example, did anyone consider the collection of garbage bins when you put in a dead-end street? The infrastructure that's needed.
So we're now moved from a question
would,
into debate. So I'll withdraw the suggestion of a dot point and refer to Councillor Hawkins, who will debate and discuss the item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do apologise. Yeah, look, this is the Traffic Committee consider legally enforceable and allowable physical traffic conditions, which this will provide. There are more long-term additions in the form of a slip lane that is instantly a temporary concrete barrier similar to what goes up in the roadwork area. That can go in tomorrow, which will stop that. There will be long-term works that will happen. Then there will be monitoring of where the traffic goes. We don't know off the top of our heads where people are going to go, which shortcuts they're going to go. You only have to look at John Renshaw Drive coming out of Stanford Mother. People make their own way through the bush, around copper slogs, barriers, that sort of thing is fully anticipated. Well, sorry, not fully anticipated that it will occur. We're fully aware that it may occur, and that's what we're going to be looking at from a traffic committee and traffic management, there's only physical barriers. It's the legal, the technical stuff that is permissible by, or sorry, consent is issued by Transport for New South Wales. That's where the toing and froing has taken place, and this outcome meets all of their specifications that they're going to allow us to. It gives us almost complete isolation of the Knockabar Road network without hindering, if you were, other important vehicle movements. There was, we've moved bus routes and all sorts of things to accommodate this. It's not just a simple fix. There's quite a lot of detail in it, and this won't be the last time we see this item come before council. I'm pretty sure that the residents out there will be informing us quite regularly where things are evolving and where any kind of antisocial or dangerous incidents are occurring. Yeah.
Okay.
So rest assured, this isn't just a band-aid. We haven't arrived at this by mistake. This has been a long, drawn-out process that we would love to have consulted more with community members, but everyone isn't going to be happy with what we're allowed to do. Not what we want to do, what we're allowed to do. So I would implore the councillors to support this tonight so that we can get something in place, more considering and more requesting of Transport for New South Wales. That's going to ensure nothing is in place, because the roadworks are nearly finished, the driveway is about to open. We need something.
Okay. Further question, Councillor
Yeah, just a
Jared?
very quick question. So if I support it tonight and let this pass to have the temporary closures, then how do the residents make sure that they aren't going to get the slip lane, which you just said, that they could easily turn left, turn right, and still cause a rat race if they take the barriers out?
There's a question to Councillor Hawkins. So.
That's what we will be monitoring, and is it a CRM process that any residents that would see hazardous traffic situations or barriers that have been moved or tampered with, that can be reported and that can be rectified, whether that's through additional barriers, extending barriers, different forms of barriers. We can look at that as the need arises.
Okay. So it's all just, the poor residents have to report any issues, and then...
Look, hang on, we're not
Yeah.
debating across the chamber.
Yes.
So,
Sorry.
yeah. We're going have you already spoken on this one, Councillor Moores, or have you got a question, or you haven't spoken?
Got a question,
Got a question?
Yeah, the question is what you're saying with the cul-de-sacs. I fully agree with you, because I live in a cul-de-sac and the council garbage have to back up in reverse. And everybody has to put their garbage on the one side. So it does create a hell of a problem for garbage men trying to get your rubbish when people are parking the cars there, and everybody's got to put the garbage on the left-hand side while he reverses in and picks everything up on the left.
Yeah.
Because he can't pick nothing up on the right because he can't turn around at the bottom. Thank you.
Yeah. Was a question in there, I'm sure. Councillor. Yeah, Councillor Burke in closing debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess I go back to a question that Councillor Jerd asked right in the beginning about how the community can continue to be consulted, and that's going to be through us. We, as councillors, need to make sure, like we have done, to continue to champion what the residents need and what the residents want. As Mr. Mayor said, it's not an ideal outcome, though I am not prepared to take this out and have a rat run now. I want something now. So therefore, in 3 months, 6 months, 12, whenever we can get to it or whenever it comes up again, we can revisit it and make sure that we continue working on it. By leaving this in does not mean that we're walking away, we're finished. This is just the next step. Just imagine shift change with nothing, and there's 20 cars come out, 10 turn right into Curlew Street, and 10 go straight ahead in Austin Street. I don't want that now, and this allows us to stop it now. So if they open, I'm 100% with you. Whether the word is permanent or temporary, doesn't matter. This has to be, from his point of view, Councillor Hawkins, it's permanent. But that can be changed. And I take comfort in the people that are present at the meeting. You've got Councillor Hawkins, who is the chair. You have Mr. Barr, the state member. We've got a senior constable, a sergeant of New South Wales Police, and most importantly, we've got someone on this committee from Traffic for Transport for New South Wales. So they're aware that we're already wanting to close these roads. We're preempting that end goal, and we have had lots of backlash over it, and there's not going to be the right solution, but I can't vote tonight to have it out and do nothing. I can't do it. I'm happy for the community to keep talking to us. Keep sending your emails, and when we do put these measures in place with the road barriers, let us know if it's working or not. Yes, you can put in a CRM, absolutely, but let us know as well, so then we're continually having the conversation around making sure that we get to a result that is going to be close to what we're all hoping for. I don't live in a cul-de-sac, but I think the plan that I was shown that day that we're out there, I think that's fantastic. And I'm happy to keep knocking on the door to get that. We may not get that, but I'm still happy to knock on the door. So by us supporting it, we're saying, hey, Nolkabar, we're hearing you, but let's just do this now so then we can keep working at it. And that's exactly how I'm going to vote tonight.
Okay, that closes debate. We'll now put the item. All those in favour, councillors, it's unanimous. Yep. Moving on to report BN4 2023, Councillor Grine.
Am I on? Thank you, Mayor. I've put this code of conduct up for this exact.
We've lost.
Yeah, I am getting to it.
So is the motion in front of you seconded? Do we need, so it was Councillor Painter? Yeah, and so you're putting up the one that's there, or were you wanting to put forward?
Yeah, the one that's there, Mayor.
Yeah. Yep.
As written for this exact moment to allow staff and ourselves to have more time. We don't necessarily make the same decisions we would be making if it was 9 o'clock in the morning. It's been a long day. So I wanted to put it out there. And I know a lot of councillors won't agree with this particular starting an hour earlier, but it's just scheduling. And, we as councillors also, have made ourselves available for one day a month to be available for this particular meeting. So I think, if you want it, you want it. If you don't, but I believe that we would make better decisions earlier in the night rather than dragging it out to later hours. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Moores.
Thank you, Mayor. I object this because I work for myself, and obviously today I'm at San Remo and having to knock work back to get back here for a 4 o'clock meeting, and it just can't happen. I can't see myself being here all the time, or I'm going to be coming late, because I can't just start knocking work back in my business to get here so it gets early, so we finish early. I start at 6 in the morning and I have to do a day's work before I come here, and that's my job. And there's no difference than Councillor Painter. He's the same if he's in Nelson's Bay and he's a removalist. So what's going to happen? We're going to end up with our meetings, and we're going to end up with people short and empty chairs because people has to work. Councillor Hill, he's a school teacher. So what time does he finish school? Or whatever he does, There's different things. I don't know. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like this should go on public expedition to see what the residents think. some might like the idea of a new start time, and some who need to speak about their DA and work in Newcastle won't be able to get here for 5:30 start if there are items on the agenda and they want to speak. I know this would be great for council staff, and that part I agree with. Also making decisions early in the night I do agree with as well there, Councillor Grant. But to finish work on a Wednesday early to be at a council chambers by 5:30 could be a mission. I will find it harder to get there personally. I would make it in time for the meeting, but definitely wouldn't make pre-meeting. Also, I want to know what happens about the tender for food. Does that mean council will save money and not have to have dinners for staff and council?
Councillor, was that your first? Hypothetical question? Yeah.
To the food and beverage committee.
Councillor Watton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can see the validity in this. I think it'd be a really good thing to have. I would, if I could make it. I do struggle personally to make those times. I see what you're trying to do. I think, like, we would be fresher to make better decisions. It wouldn't carry on. We're 9:15 right now, and I think taking into consideration daylight savings, like finishing as well. I can see what you're attempting to do. I just I wish I could support it. My schedule's pretty crazy. I also work for myself, and I've got to make the most of every moment that I've got at the moment. So unfortunately, I can't support, but I do see where you're going. I wish I could, but I can't. Thanks.
Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really quickly, I guess I'm on the flip side. It's not really about my work because I allocate Wednesdays for council to be able to be on hand to do anything that I need. But I guess looking at today, for example, we had a site visit at 2:00. We then had the pre-meeting at 4:30 because we had a confidential briefing at 5 that went for just over an hour and 15 minutes. So we only had 15 minutes in between before this meeting started, and that could happen on a regular basis. And I think that us being able to fit more in before this meeting is a good thing, because Wednesday is council day, so you should be altering your diaries to be here. That's what the community vote us in for, to be here. So if you look at the times of today, then it wouldn't work. So unfortunately, I won't be able to support you.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Savelle. In one of the initial conversations Councillor Grant and I had in regards to this was to address the concern about the meetings running late. As I understand it now, there is a sort of a soft limit of 10 p.m. on the council meetings, and if business isn't concluded, we can move to extend the meeting to address those items, or move them along to an additional meeting, an extraordinary meeting. That was one of my concerns that I wanted to have a look at addressing, because I don't think we should go to waste all the time and resources of calling an extraordinary meeting just because we couldn't finish the matters of a meeting in one sitting. But in reviewing this NOM and looking through the Code of Meeting Practice, there is a provision in the Code of Meeting Practice that allows us to, via a resolution of council, extend the meeting by an extra hour. And while I do also, as Councillor Burke said, when I first stood to run for council, I understood there was certain requirements to be expected of me to be able to be at meetings. That's not always possible. So some people have unavoidable concerns, and a change in time may impact your availability. When you stood, you might have thought you only had to be available from 6:30 onwards. That's fair enough. But because the provision exists there already to extend the meeting if need be, I think that covers my major concern. And the additional worry I have is that bringing it forward to 5:30 to address a long-run meeting might never have an impact. If we could start running the meetings at 5:30 and they may always finish before 9, I think an extension at the end is more applicable than a bringing forward.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, just a technical question, I suppose. Are we allowed to amend our Code of Meeting Practice without putting it on exhibition?
I was going to suggest that there was some an alternate things, and maybe it might want to be enclosed on if it does get supported, we should include that.
Well, I don't think we can vote on it until it includes that.
Yes. So would the mover and seconder be happy to have it written as below in that process, the same outcome, but going through that process?
We just have to exhibit the proposed changes. We can't just make them.
I'll just refer to the director for clarity.
Thank you, Mayor Sewell. As outlined in the Director's commentary in the report, you can't amend the Code of Meeting Practice without going to advertising it, put it on exhibition, and the exhibition period, because of the quirk of the legislation, is yes, it goes out for 28 days, but you have to allow 42 days for submission. So therefore, it's a period after the 28 days. So if you were to put it out on exhibition and amend it, it wouldn't be to come into effect until 42 days from this evening, essentially. But you can't amend the Code of Meeting Practice without advertising that proposed change.
Yes, as I understand it, submissions would close after 42 days, and after that, we would have to then consider whether we're going to amend our Code of Meeting Practice.
If we could just on that one, just in the last point should be that a further report be returned to council after the submission process. So in front of council in that last line, so that a further report, or that council receive a report following the exhibition period, and then delete the rest. Yeah. So should this pass and there be a consensus to bring the meetings forward an hour, that would be in support of this motion. And if you're happy with them as they are, you would be voting against the motion as it is. Councillor Watton, you've spoken, you had a question.
Not a question, just want to clarify. Can I clarify something just for the record? When we I can phrase it as a question. When we did stand for council, it was recommended that Wednesday was the optimum day to be available for briefings, etc. However, also as councillors, just to, we're not just available for Wednesday, is that correct?
Yeah.
It's not just Wednesdays. It's not just a Wednesday job. Or not just a day Wednesday. So, like, for instance, my council day is now Monday because my schedule's changed. And so be it. So, if I've got white space in my diary, I work that into and it equates well more than a day. And I know many councillors here give more than a day's work. I just want to make a point of clarification there and phrase it as a question as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Closing debate, Councillor Grine.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sewell. Look, I agree with all of you. I'm also a business owner, Councillor Moore, so I get it. But I also agreed that when I was elected as a councillor for Ward D, that I would make myself available. And if that costs me money, which it does, to put on staffs that I'm not there in my business, I do that. That's how serious I am about representing the community back home. So all I'm saying is, we, especially in the last few meetings, I struggle with the amount of time that is required by certain councillors to get answers to questions that had already been answered in the many briefings that we'd had leading up to these meetings. So it therefore wastes a lot of time and then drags out to the end of the night, where we then have to go into a confidential session to make even more important decisions. Are we at our best and peak as at that time? Or would those councillors choose to spend more time getting those same answers in the room like we are when we as councillors turn up to these meetings, briefings, committee meetings to get those answers that are already repeated on the nights? That's all I have to say. It's just very, very frustrating when we're hearing the same answers over and over again from the same questions we've already asked 2 or 3 times. Very frustrating. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and just to clarify that Councillor Grine and Councillor Payne, you've accepted that the motions as below with the correct wording, so that is now the motion. So those in support of the Councillor Grine's motion, say aye. Raise your hand. Councillors Jackson, Grine, Sander and Hawkins, those against. Councillors Moores, Burke, Hill, Painter, Watton, Jerd and Savall. I'll declare it lost. And now we'll move to BN7. I think Councillor Olsen has requested that be removed to the next meeting to allow him to speak on that. So that will be deferred. BN8, call on Councillor Watton.
Sure, thank you. So, do I need to move this motion first?
Yeah, moving the motion.
Yep.
And are you, yep, and seconded by Councillor Jerd.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So before I get into the actual, my rationale and more so how I worded this motion, I just want to make it abundantly clear, and I appreciate the setup before, Mayor. I do appreciate that. So let's look at the definition of CCTV first. So it's closed circuit. Before we were talking about surveillance that goes, who knows where, it's facial recognition technology, there's license plate recognition, closed circuit. My understanding was before I even considered this, I asked questions. So make it abundantly clear, I asked questions about this. Where does the information go? Where is the data stored? I was promptly answered by the relevant directors saying that it is stored on a remote hard drive. It's not monitored by anyone. And if there's an incident, then that information can be called upon. So you can liken this to a building site where there's a camera protecting the asset while the building's... If you've ever been to a building site, we've got a lot of works going on, you've probably seen a camera of this description. So I just want to make that abundantly clear. Just wanted to hit that setup out of the park right off the gate. Now, onto the motion. That the General Manager research appropriate relevant grants that may be able to assist in further protecting these community assets, and I'm speaking with regards to Peace Park, Weston in particular, and Miller Park, with appropriate, should be in capital and bold, underlined, surveillance technology, similar to Bridges Hill Park. We already have this in place. And point 2, that the General Manager prepare a report which will include all associated installation and maintenance costs of said surveillance technology in comparison to estimated cost trajectories relating to ongoing vandalism, damage repairs, should no interventions be taken. And I do appreciate the commentary that you've provided, General Manager. My rationale. So in my ward that I represent, Ward C, we have 2 very popular parks, and boy, have we spent a lot of money on those parks. And I'm actually glad we did, because they're actually very popular parks. I use them a lot. Well used, and I think they're fantastic. However, they're frequently damaged. So, very unfortunately, I'll speak to the words, and I'll stick to my wording, and then I'll speak on it a bit further. So very unfortunately, these parks are subject to ongoing vandalism and damage. This incurs major repair costs on council's already stretched budget, while also making park amenities unavailable to the public for long periods of time, such as the Liberty Swing in Peace Park. It was out of action for ages. In comparison, Bridges Hill Park, which is opened in March of 2021, has suffered very minimal, if any, vandalism since its opening. It's a very clean park. It's great. Still is. Bridges Hill Park is also monitored by ongoing CCTV surveillance, closed circuit. Please remember closed circuit, which appears to be a major factor in deterring antisocial criminal behaviour based on evidence. I'd really like council to consider this, and I want to speak to the, I've got a minute and 40 seconds. I want to speak to some of the director's notes, because these are great notes. With regards to, I understand there's not many grants available for this kind of crime prevention like projects as it stands right now, and I can appreciate that. However, when we look at one park in particular that was mentioned, not even within 12 months, so since July 2022, the park has sustained $8,600 in graffiti removal. That's correct? I'm reading that figure correctly? Yep. So you could argue that within 4 years, these cameras would essentially pay for themselves based on that figure. And we're talking man hours that could be spent elsewhere. If I put a notice of motion in a few months, like last year, with regards to Huntley Park. There's a new park, and it was hit, and something had to be done. It was hit by vandalism. Something had to be done, and I put a notice of motion in for closed circuit cameras to be put in, and it's substantially dropped the vandalism there. I would really, I'd be very interested to find out about other programs that are available, either in conjunction or separate to, concerning anti-graffiti, which is in the director's notes as well, anti-graffiti paint, murals, things like that. Basically, the community cried out, and I'm trying to answer a solution that can actually bring results. We need to protect these assets so we can actually use them, and use the ratepayers' money elsewhere. Hope that's clear.
Time's out. Councillor Sander.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Watton, for bringing this to everybody's attention in the local government area. I am too a Ward C councillor, and the vandalism at Beast Park and also Miller Park is unbelievable. I didn't believe that they could do so much damage in so little time, but I certainly support this motion. But I was wondering if you were interested in the alternative motion that the General Manager spoke, the Director provided. It's a little bit shorter, a little bit, it's more to the point. And I believe that we do need the CCTV monitoring in these two parks. We need them in a lot of parks because the vandalism has just gone off the charts in the last 12 months, couple of years. Yep. It's been horrendous. And for the ratepayer to keep on having to fund the repairs to this, I would hope that if they see any of this vandalism, they should report it straight away and we can get something done. We can always try the police. But anyway, the vandalism was on Frankston Pool today. Absolutely shocking. It must have taken them hours to draw their sketch on the front of the pool. They defaced the memorial plaque. Surely somebody must see this. But having said that, we need to protect our assets first and foremost. If we can get some grant funding, well and good, but we've still got to maintain the asset we have to the best possible way and the least cost. And if we can reduce the vandalism on these larger parks that we spend millions on, it's not $10, we can spend millions on. I think we not only we ask for the community support in trying to weed out these vandals, but certainly if we can find some solutions electronically, so be it, bring it on.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Val. With my background in IT and I have some relevant CCTV experience, the high school high school I work at Curry High currently has upwards of 20 or 30 security cameras in place, which has been implemented over a period of time, and that has helped the staff there immensely in being able to identify not just break-ins but also serious student misbehaviour. In the past, a student may have walked into the office and claimed, "I didn't do it," and the staff can now say, "Well, here's the video evidence of you doing it," and then that can be passed on to the police in more serious circumstances. Something that we encounter quite extensively in the Department of Education is that there are strict policies and guidelines about how CCTV cameras can be used on our site and the rules around what it can point at and what can be recorded and how it's accessed. I note in the considerations and the Director's commentary that Cessnock Council does not currently have a CCTV policy, and I would be whilst I'm in full support of investigating this for implementation, it worries me that we would like to move forward with this without an existing policy in place. So I would move, if amenable with with Councillor Watton, that the alternative recommendation from the General Manager, as may be written further down on the screen, be adopted as a resolution with an additional dot point 3, which includes the development of a CCTV policy.
So last point, to consider the development of a CCTV
Yep.
policy.
That'd be
So
great.
To consider the development.
To consider the development. And I think that would also allow, I believe the process for developing a policy would also include public consultation, which I think is an important part of implementing these sorts of solutions around the LGA. So hopefully Councillor Watton is
So
happy to
before
accept.
you move that, Councillor Watton, are you happy to accept the alternative that's there on the screen?
Yep. Good chance to keep speaking. So you're not happy. So at the moment it's either a yes or no. Like you're happy to accept it or you're not happy. I'm happy to take
No?
more change in wording. And
No. So Councillor Hill is moving it. Is Councillor Hill's amendment seconded? Is Councillor Sander?
Yep. Okay.
So we're now debating the amendment, which is put forward by Councillor Hill and Sander.
Excellent. Happy to hear Dan.
So you'll finish speaking on that, Councillor Hill. Councillor Moores.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully agree with this, and also I want the people of Cessnock to realise this is not to spy on them. It is to stop the vandalism that's happening when we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, on these parks. For instance, I was asked to go out to Hundley Park. Councillor Walton was out there, and that was the day it was opening up. And that particular day, they graffitied all over the park, and the kids were running around, the young girls, trying to get it off the park and off the slides and off the toys that they play with. So obviously, it just shows you they don't care. They don't care. They're just out there. Tag, great. I'll just tag my name. So we need something like this. If we're going to move forward, it's a beautiful town. I mean, as we're saying now, Curry's looking beautiful. I drove through it today. But the point is that we don't want to all graffiti tomorrow. So we've got to look at these things, what we can do to sort of protect ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Judd.
Okay. So, which is it, guys? Smart cities or not smart cities? That will never happen in Cessnock. We were talking about this, we were talking about this earlier, about monitoring our daily movements. This alternate recommendation isn't talking about a park where it's CCT'd to a hard drive to see if vandalism happens. Now you want to implement CCTV policy to bring in cameras, in the LGA? Is that not what it's saying? To consider development of a CCTV policy.
You could add in there, Councillor Judd, if you're concerned about that. The words that are up in the original one, to protect community assets.
Yeah, but community assets are, is it not just roads? Because community assets are parks, they're community spaces. How many community assets would have these cameras on them?
That would be the policy that would come towards us, I would imagine.
Yeah. See, this is the issue. We said earlier that Cessnock will never be a smart city. This is a major contradiction to the start of this meeting where you said, we'd never be a smart city, we'd never stand for that, and here we are going to vote to put not even Dan's, which was just for a park to make sure it doesn't get vandalised. Here we are going to put it in all assets, all public areas, all public areas that are council assets, which any resident can be a part of, where they're going to be a CCTV policy. Now, is that going to come back to the community as an on expedition so they can vote whether or not they want their photo taken if they go to a park?
So the answer to that is any policy that would be set would have to come to council first and then would go on exhibition and potentially come back to council.
So if we vote on that recommendation, is that putting it to be a policy to then put in place to go on expedition?
No, so this is saying consider developing a policy, which if the general manager was going to then develop a policy, they would present that back to council before anything would happen.
Okay.
Any policies of council are required to be adopted by council.
Okay.
So
Well, I can't support the recommendation that the bottom one. I can support Councillor Watton's first motion because it's just about one park. What's that? Sorry? Research approach
anyway,
it,
we're
where
debating
it
across
may
the
be
chamber the
able to
concerns around that.
Well, then I can't support it.
And in addressing that, I would think that the any implementation and further implementation of CCTV should have a policy attached to it rather than just be a free-for-all. Councillor Watton is speaking on the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm actually quite concerned that we don't have a policy in place of any sorts, but we have cameras in place, and I'm just wondering how that. But there's no real protection here. I may have been naive. I thought there was when I was asking questions originally, so it is concerning. I do. We need to be very careful with the language, and I hear what Councillor Jurd's talking about and mentioning here. I'd like to, review any potential draft policy, and it has to go on exhibition, and then come back to council. And I'll be very carefully looking at the wording if this was to go through. But the fact is that we've got cameras out there that are essentially rogue. They're not really policed by any underpinning. So that needs to be looked at right now, because we've got to share the concern of okay, what's been videoed, where's it going? My understanding was it's going to a hard drive and only being called upon when the police, if there's an incident. That's what I want. That's all I want. And this is, I believe that's what everyone wants, I hope. So yeah, I think we do need to review the policy regardless, because there is no policy. So we need to really get on that, because right now there's nothing. So right now someone could come and go, well, I've got a ladder and a high-vis jacket. I'm going to check out that hard drive or whatever. I'm just saying, because there's no actual policy in place. We can actually come through and have a look at it. That's really concerning. So I was actually going to speak to that point as well. So yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Councillor Hill, you've already spoken on the amendment, but confirming that Councillor Hill and Sandra are happy with the addition to that third dot point about protecting community assets. Yep.
And can I close debate on the amendment?
No, you don't get a right of reply on
That's
an
fine.
amendment.
No
Councillor Moores. on
Question.
the amendment. Yep.
Hey, Robert, community, director of community. Robert, you've been here the longest. I presume that, if I remember rightly, did not Cessnock Council put CCTV cameras in Vincent Street and we had to remove them many, many years ago? I'm talking 10, 13, 14 years ago.
Director.
Thank you, Councillor, through the Mayor. Yes, there was well before my time, I will point out.
I'm sorry, old fella.
But certainly there was CCTV cameras in the main street in Vincent and I believe
Correct.
Cooper Street.
Yes. I thought there was.
They used to be recorded and monitored through the police station. Because of a change in the way they operated, that was removed, and I think there was council reports and the like around the time, and they were removed after that time. I can't tell you when it was.
Yeah, I thought there was. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no further debate. Let's put the item, let's first put the amendment. We're discussing the amendment. So moving, those in favour of the amendment from Councillor Hill is Councillor Jackson, Moores, Burt, Grind, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Painter, Watton and Saval. Those against, Councillor Jerd. The amendment now becomes the motion. Put the motion. All those in favour, Councillors Jackson, Moores, Burt, Grind, Sander, Hill, Hawkins, Painter, Watton and Saval. Those against, Councillor Jerd. I'll declare it carried. We'll now move on to councillor reports. There are no councillor reports, and on that note, I will close the meeting.